Hello and welcome to this side of the gate. And on my side of the gate right now, we're just creeping into the Halloween hubbub. You haven't even quite reached the mischief night and all that, but you should be listening to it right around then. And I hope you've got your full of candy and you've had a good time with all the little spooks and ghoulies. And tonight, I thought what we do is have a really great conversation with a fantastic new friend I found. And I brought in an old friend of ours, my co host, Steve Stockton. Steve, say hi.
Hi, Cisco. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to it.
Oh, it's going to be great. Well, we couldn't not have you on because tonight we have a kindred spirit, I believe. Now, Michael is the founder. Now, this is I think this society has been around since about 1962, and it's the let me get closer, the Heritage Hunters Society. Now, he's going to come on and tell us more about that, but he bases a lot of his heart in history and historical places that happen to be haunted. And he's been out there traveling around and met quite a few different historical ghosts as well as historical places. So let's bring him on. It's Michael LaChana. Come on in.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me this evening. Great to meet both of you.
Oh, it's wonderful to have you. We've been talking for
Hi,
such a long
Michael. Nice
time.
to meet you
Thank
too.
you. Hey, Steve. Nice to meet you.
We've been talking for such a long time, and the more we talk, the more we find we have in common when it comes to this genre. Now, what got you started in being interested in paranormal, supernatural, the uncanny? What got you started?
Oh, oh, sure. I'd love to share with you. First off, yeah, 1992. I'm not that old. I was born in
What did I say?
'64, so
What did I say? 62?
you said '62. That's fine. Maybe it's my former spirit
It could
that
be.
had started it.
Could be.
Um, I started out a typical kid of the late '60s, early '70s, just loving all the TV shows that we had back
Oh
then.
gosh, yes.
We had the Munsters, the Addams Family, the Ghost and Mrs. Muir.
Oh
I
yeah.
just loved all those shows.
I
I
know.
had never had any experiences growing up in my younger days. Just loved ghosts, but didn't really even know if they were real. And around the age 14, I became a musician and started playing music. And for some reason, I was hell bent on buying a Pioneer reel to reel that back then was $700,
Wow.
and I was 14, and I don't know how I did it, but back then you could ride your bicycle up there and give them $10, and I kept riding up there and giving them money. Finally, paid it off and got it and brought it home, and it was just a two-track recorder, but it is super high end for back then.
Yeah.
And I started reading about Dr. Hans Holzer at the time.
Oh
Didn't
gosh.
know who he was, read one of his articles in a magazine called the Yankee Magazine. Used to spend my summers in New Hampshire, and we used to get this magazine all the time. And I just read this ghost story about ocean-born Mary, and I was so taken back by it. I couldn't believe what I read, and it was not too far from where we lived in New Hampshire, and so that just made it even more credible. And at the very end of the article, there was maybe half a page or a few paragraphs, and it was from Dr. Holzer, and it basically said, "You too can record ghosts." And I was like, what is this? So I read, and it basically just said, you just take a recorder, plug it into a stereo receiver, put it all the way to zero on pure static, and let it run. And so I said, well, hey, I got this right, brand new reel to reel. So let me try this. Um, I did. I put it on. I put it to pure static, and those tapes go for about 2 hours. So I basically just let it run. I left. I think I went out and played for the day. Um, Came back later, and I listened to it. And about maybe an hour in, now remember, this not being recorded with a microphone at all. This was just through pure static and direct input. And I recorded a man screaming bloody murder,
Mm.
yelling for help, and pleading bloody murder. And he was cursing, and these were curses I never even heard at 14.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And could not believe what I captured, and played it for my family and different folks. And right there, that got me started in 1978 at 14. And I thought, oh my God, this stuff is real. This is you know, it wasn't a CB. It wasn't a, we didn't have cell phones back then.
Right.
Um, and the way this man was yelling and screaming, I just don't know where he came from, but it was not through a microphone. So it blew me away. I still own that reel to reel to this day, and I don't have the recording anymore, of course, because back then I'm sure somehow it got destroyed. But I still own that same reel to reel, and it still functions. So that's
Wow.
how I got started. And now I'm 55 years old, and so I've been on the path ever since.
Wow, that is like the best answer to that question I've ever gotten.
Was that a loaded question or what?
No, but I'm just saying. You usually say, "Well, I had an experience. I started seeing people, when I was little, that
Yes,
kind of thing." This was just so different and so intriguing. I mean, on
thank
so many
you.
levels for me. I'm sure Steve too. He's probably, if he had a tail, he'd be wagging right now, right, Steve?
Yeah,
Because it's
absolutely.
it's just
Love it.
amazing. Because Hans Holzer, he didn't get me started. But when I picked up and I read the back of that first book when I was like 12, I had been searching all that time for true ghost stories and, just searching and trying to get information, which was so hard back then. Um,
Yes.
it clicked for me. And then I started reading his word. I think I stood there and read like a quarter of the book before I ever left the store. I was just that taken by it. And I'm just sitting here listening to you thinking how many people he influenced. It's just amazing, because he had such a right approach about it and a heart for it.
Okay.
That's an amazing story. As
Well,
soon
thank
as you
you.
said the Pioneer reel to reel, I was with you because I know
Yes.
in 1978 my boyfriend had one because we were in a band, and I know exactly
Pioneer
what you're talking.
707. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I know exactly which one you're talking about. You too, right, Steve?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I had one. I didn't get mine till the '80s. I bought it secondhand, but I was in a punk band, and that was what we did our demos on. So I know
Oh,
the
yeah.
recorder.
Well, oh, yeah. Wow. Now that's something freaky that we all have.
I know.
We're tied to real.
And there's another
Because I tell
click.
people, they're like, "How did you start reel to reel?" I said, "Yep, reel to reel."
Wow. And so many did. I mean, there's a famous, not famous, but somebody I've seen on multiple shows. She was an older lady and she lived, I want to say, on a dock somewhere. It was almost had a lighthouse kind of feel. It wasn't a lighthouse herself, but and she just recorded EVPs and recorded EVPs. And she would go to different places and graveyards and stuff and just try to
Oh
talk to
yeah.
them and then go back and listen to them. And then if she got something, she'd go back and try to connect again. And she used a big reel to reel. And I'm hoping somewhere all those are archived. She put a lot of her time into that. Um,
Oh yeah.
so it's just an amazing thing. So now history. You've always been interested in the history, and then the two roads kind of connected for you.
Well, it's very funny. Uh, I grew up in a family of five children, and my grandparents, especially my grandfather, loved history. And every weekend, he would take the kids or whoever wanted to go, and they would go somewhere historical. Uh, and then we would travel to Pennsylvania, Connecticut, wherever they would go for the day or so. And we would go to forts. And I guess it just got embedded in me. Out of all the kids, I think I'm the biggest history nut out of
Wow.
all the five kids. So
Mm.
that's I guess where it started. And then I always loved history, but then as I got into the paranormal, I said, I want to be able to go to a historical place and capture people that are there from their generation or from their time. And
Hmm.
that's pretty much when I designed the Heritage Hunter Society back in the early 90s.
What a fantastic idea. And, we
Yeah.
think a lot of people do this, and a lot of people are interested in history. In fact, just for the listeners, you have to understand that there's a lot of historical places standing today because the paranormal got involved. Because they said,
Yeah.
no, we want to keep this going. There's multiple people interested in this that, have purchased homes and made them bed and breakfast, like, Pam and
Right.
Steve Barry and Gettysburg.
Yeah.
That's just one, but there's multiple, and just preservation of Civil War. I know they almost decided to tear up part of Shiloh, and a bunch of people
Uh,
got involved because they wanted to get rid of some of the graves. And I'm like, what are you thinking? How could you possibly do that? And a lot of paranormal people got involved in that as well. And it really is for all the things that you hear about paranormal investigators doing this or that, or you see the TV shows and you think, this isn't really doing any
Yeah.
good. You bet it is. Behind the scenes, good
Yeah.
people with good hearts are really doing an awful lot of good. And it's really what you're doing now. I don't know if you want to bring up your project now, but what you're doing
Oh,
is
sure.
more like a living history with intertwining the dead there. So you've got a dead living history, really.
Right.
It's
Oh,
amazing.
yeah. Um, well, when I create, thank you so much. When I created the Heritage Hunter back in the early '90s, my number one goal to go to Mount Vernon because I love George Washington, and I wanted to go see if I could, somehow connect with him.
Hmm.
And it was years later, within the last year or two, that I finally got to Mount Vernon for the first time.
Hmm.
Um, but I've been to other countries. I've been very lucky to go to England and France and Spain, and so I've been able to. And wherever I go, I always carry my equipment. I mean, people think I'm nuts, but I have a tiny little case, and I put all my recorders, all my full spectrum, just the stuff that I really need. That's really, that collects good evidence. And I've traveled all over, and wherever I go, I pop them out.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's what got me started with the Heritage Hunter Society, and I do believe that that's what keeps me going is the history end of it.
Mm.
Um, if I had to just do the investigating in more modern settings, I don't think I'd be as interested because
Hmm.
um, that historical aspect for me is so important and connected. And I feel that the people from the past were such strong-willed people,
Oh, yeah.
and what they went through compared to what we go through nowadays,
Mm.
what we go through is a joke. We
Mm.
we don't suffer like these people from the past. So
Oh, yeah.
I just think that their constitutions were amazing, and so yeah, so I love it, and I never get tired of going to historical locations.
Oh, me
And
too.
even if I'm not investigating, just to eat up the history, I love it.
Right. I mean, you just take it, you go back 100 years and take a day in the life. It's so
Yes.
different, so different. And I can't tell you, I mean, I raised two boys on my own, and I can't tell you to tell them that all the time. In fact, you'll be interested in this. It's kind of offshoot a little bit, but I homeschooled them for many years out in Alabama. And I
Oh
had to
wow.
come up with different ways, hands on stuff. Like we did things like I'd have them make their own ink. First, I'd have them study that period, whatever we were studying, and try to pull stuff out of it that we could do hands on. And I had them make their own ink. I had them go get a feather, make a quill, and then we studied signatures. And I said, practice a signature, like off the Declaration of Independence or something like that, because I was
That's
trying to
awesome.
teach them how signatures, just your penmanship, stated your education. And it
Right.
used to be such a huge thing. Journals were, men, women, everybody wrote journals about what happened that day, just simple things and complex things mixed together. And we did things like that. And then one day I told them I had to go to work, and they were there. And I said, well, when I come home, I want you guys thinking about this. I want you to pick a date. And I used to mess with their minds. I don't know how they turned out so good. But I said, I want you to just pick a date in history, any date at all. And I'll be back and I'll tell you why. So all day long, they're sitting there commiserating back and forth. And I know they were talking about it because they know their mom and they know I'm sneaky. So they're saying things like, well, don't pick 1945 because, she'll have us, out there pretending we're in the war or, in the World War II or something. You don't know what she's going to pull here. So I know they were talking about all these different dates in history, and it was between them and, by the time I got home, they stood both together and they looked at me and they said 1924. And I'm thinking, where did they come up with that one? Because it wasn't any big date of anything. And I
Significant.
said, okay, this is what we're going to do over the weekend. We're going to start a garden, and you can't use anything to start that garden that wasn't invented, but after 1924, they went, oh
I
no.
That's awesome. Now, do your sons love history to this day,
Yes.
or
Yes.
what? What has been the final result of all that?
They love it. They love it. I mean, one can sit. I mean, in third grade, they had people that came, veterans that came from World War II to talk to the kids. And he said he raised his hand so many times to answer the questions correctly that he was starting to feel nervous about it, and then they pulled him aside and they talked about it because he knew the whole thing. Like the guy pulled out the little cricket clicker. They said, "Did anybody know what this is?" And he raised his hand. I know what it is. You know, it's just he's just so into it. And Civil War, they've been on many battlefields and things like that, and
Oh,
they know a lot of that stuff, and they're very intrigued by it. And Steve loves history. I think he lives for history too. Don't you,
Oh
kiddo?
yeah, love it. Always have. Just a lot of history in my family. The Stockton family, and I can never remember whether it's Richard or Benjamin, but one of them signed the Declaration of Independence.
oh wow.
Wow.
And then Kate Bradford Stockton of the Mayflower Bradford, she was the first woman to run for governor in Tennessee. My grandmother, Fanny Stockton, was the first female postmaster in Tennessee. So there's a lot of history there, a lot of stuff to look back into and go over. And we
Wow.
just kind of always kept up with that. We knew where we came from and who we were related to and what their roles had been. Had people that fought alongside Washington in the Revolutionary War,
Hmm.
and then in the Civil War had people on both sides. So it's a
Oh
unique
wow.
mix.
Isn't
That's
that something?
awesome. Rich history.
Yeah. I mean,
That's,
that's just so cool. Now, me, I was connected more to my Native American side, Lenape and Cherokee, and
right.
so that I was able to see from the northeastern feel. And then when I went to Alabama, I didn't expect that I was going to bump into so many Cherokee people there. So I got it kind of
Oh,
that feel of it. So I got a little bit of both taste there. And then we have Scottish. We actually, um, so many records are destroyed. I can only get back so far, but I know my father's parents came over here as immigrants through Ellis Island. So
oh.
it's amazing. Yeah, and I've dug a lot into the Scottish heritage too. And when you both have been in the UK. I've never been, but I'm just so interested in it. And I know when you get over into anything like that, they laugh when we say we have history here because theirs goes back so far. And it
Oh my
really is a
God. I,
difference.
I didn't
I
I
had a
didn't realize
friend
till
that
I
lived in a house
uh,
over there. He said, "Oh, my house isn't really that old. It's only 700 years old." And I'm like, "What?"
oh yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I think if I could, yeah, definitely planning to go back. Probably next year. I have some good friends in London and did some investigating there.
Mm.
One of the clips I sent tonight, you'll be able to listen to, is actually from a really cool called the Gin Palace, and we were down in the basement, and I caught a lady talking, but it was wild because she has a British accent,
Oh,
so that's
wow.
really yeah.
Yeah. I had a gentleman on here and I wanted to tell, I know Steve's heard the story, but I wanted to tell you before I forgot. I want you to look into him. His name is Dan Baldwin. He is a wonderful man, and he lives by the Superstition Mountains, and he goes out every day, and he has gotten. There were so many Chinese people there that came through with the railroad and all that kind of thing in that area. But he actually has EVPs that it took them so long to figure out. He was out there in the caves, and he's the only man I've ever heard of that's gotten EVPs. Once they deciphered the language, found out it was a language that went out, I want to say 1,000 years ago, probably more than that. It was actually, um, what did he say it was, Steve? I want to say it was tribal, is what it was.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was, but
Oh,
yeah,
it's
it was some
incredible.
some that had been gone for a long time,
Hmm.
and
Wow,
finally
that's
found
Dead
somebody that
language.
could identify it and actually found out that they were saying things.
Hmm. Hmm.
that's so
Absolutely.
interesting,
It is.
especially to go that far back,
Oh,
because
yeah.
you don't hear a lot of ETs that are more than 100, 200 years old,
This is true.
and very hard to even prove a
Hmm.
lot. I've gotten some things where people say dates from the 50s and all, but
Hmm.
we don't, we still don't know enough. And after all these years to really get locked in day in, when you get Native Americans or different languages that are gone, that's amazing.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, I've heard so many amazing stories since I've been doing this and even before. But then when you start reaching out to people like you and people like Steve and listeners that, send me information, and it's mind-boggling what has really happened in my lifetime We're all pretty around the same age. So when you go back to when you can really remember, like when you were 8, 9, 10 years old, and if you were interested in this at all, you couldn't find information, or we all have this just solid admiration for those shows, like you mentioned in the beginning, like,
Yeah.
sightings. And I had forgotten all about the Ghost of Mrs. Muir. The
Right.
movie. I remember the movie
Yeah, I'd
before the
forgotten
show.
about that one too.
And My
Yeah, it was
Mother,
a
the
great
And,
show.
Car. I mean,
and
even
In Search of, that
yeah.
was like
Oh,
my
shoot.
Insert
go-to.
that was my that's I try and use that show as similar to what I'm putting together with my show.
Hmm.
Um,
Cool.
just as far as the type of subjects, I mean, they do more cryptozoology, they do UFOs. I don't really do a lot of that, but I'm interested in all of it.
Hmm.
So who knows for the future? That
Right,
might be
right.
something.
Yeah, just, doors wide open. And sometimes the door opens, in this subject, the door opens all by itself.
Oh yeah,
And you wind up walking. See what I did there? Because you just go right in, you'll be doing one thing, and then you find out you veered off and you've gone into this too. And it's an
yeah,
amazing, the whole thing from paranormal to supernatural, just the unexplained is
yeah.
just always. I mean, when we were kids, how
Oh
much
yeah,
did you love hearing about the Bermuda Triangle and the
Mhm.
oh
disappearances?
yeah.
And we
And
just
then I actually
devoured
went
it.
over it. Yeah, I actually
Oh,
traveled over it, and I was very intrigued. And we did actually have an experience that happened to while we were coming back across the Bermuda Triangle on our cruise ship. Um, it was October and the waters were pretty rough, and they got a mayday call from a small boat that got lost, and we were the only people out in the sea, and they said basically we got to turn around and go get these people, and it was right out in the middle of the Bermuda Triangle, and took us about 2 hours to get to find get to them. But I was like, wow, how wild is this? I always thought, if I ever got here, would something happen? And, they said that their instrumentation just went nuts and that they totally got off of route, and that's how they got lost. And they ran out of power, ran out of gas.
wow. Just,
Yeah,
yeah, the magnetic
pretty cool.
pull is just
Yeah,
insane there. And
I think that's what the risk is.
yeah,
And
well,
you have those triangles that show up in a lot of areas. There's a Tampa
Yes,
triangle. There's the
yes.
Bridgewater triangle.
Hmm.
Up to, I think, what Connecticut, I believe, where that is, and there's a couple other places where they have these triangles, and within that area, there's weird stuff that goes on. I don't know if there's ley lines there or some kind of magnetic uh,
Definitely.
vortex, or I'm not sure what's going on, but it's interesting nonetheless.
oh
And
yeah.
Totally
Cisco,
believe
you
it.
mentioned the Superstition Mountains. I've had some strange experiences there. There's rocks that just can't be photographed
Mm,
all the time, and there's little clouds that'll like show up and follow you and be
wow.
inch long, a sheer face somewhere, and a wind will come up out of nowhere, and you think it's going to knock you off there. And of course, that's where the Lost Dutchman mine is supposed to be. And
Right.
uh, there's been some strange murders and things in there, like in not fairly recent years, but a few decades ago, they didn't find the people's heads and things like that. So
Yeah,
it's a
you
Where's that
just
strange,
located?
strange place. It's in
Where's that located?
Arizona.
Oh, in Arizona. Yeah,
yeah,
that's interesting.
it is.
There's so many places that
That's
are really
just it.
interesting.
That's just
Yeah.
it. And when you walk into let's just face it, everywhere we're walking is a historical site. But when you
Hmm.
have buildings that are still there, but especially if they're made of stone or anything like that, they remember. I mean, when I walk through Devil's Den, I mean, and I've done it several times now. When you walk through Devil's Den, and if you've never been there, there's great big boulders and just formations of all these different boulders and crevices and nooks and crannies
Right.
and open space in between, and you can sit on one of those rocks and it's almost like they're talking to you. The rocks are just vibrating
Yeah.
with, and I'm me personally, I
Yeah.
get like these pictures, and I'm just, the rock remembers, the ground remembers, and then buildings that are made out of the, same thing, they all hold these vibrations. And I understand when you say, when you go into a place, you want it, you're almost trying to get history told through those that have been there, whether they're ghosts or whether they're visiting because you're interested. Because I personally believe that spirits can do that. Just come back and go, hey, he's interested. I've got a
Yes.
kind heart, a good energy, a good intent here. I'm going to come back and say a couple things because somebody's paying attention. And I believe that happens
Yes.
too. I really believe
Oh
that.
yeah.
And
Yes.
and they don't want to be forgotten. And the way you said how people lived back then was so different. And I try so hard to get people to understand that when you go into a place, um, like Gettysburg or any battlefield anywhere, you name it. I don't care what battle it was. Try to figure, try to understand who you're speaking to, and do it with respect. I mean, these people, they didn't even call each other by their first names if they were married in town. They called Mr. and Mrs.
Yeah.
Smith, Mr. and Mrs. whatever. And to just go out there and speak how we do today, and you're not even saying anything rude, is already rude because of the way you're speaking it. So,
Yeah.
and it does make a
Most
difference,
definitely.
I believe. And just walking in with that
And
reverence is a big difference to what you're going to collect and what you're going to walk out with, I think.
oh yeah, I believe vibes. Yeah. And I've worked with I used to train a lot of people. I would train the general public on how to investigate, and I opened it up for anybody that wanted to join. And I would just teach things that I've learned over the years and my methods, which are I stay very simple and very hardcore on good equipment and things like that. And I would train people, and yeah, it's just amazing. But I would take multiple people to certain places, and very few would capture some things, and then most wouldn't capture anything. Um, but I always saw a repeat of the same people catching things, and I'm very similar. I'll work with a lot of people from different groups over the years, and so I'm always getting 5, 10, 15 things in an investigation sometimes in one night,
Mhm.
and they're getting zero. They're not
Mhm.
getting anything.
Right.
And so then I'm like, am I a crackpot, or are these people not reviewing properly? I mean, I don't know how they review. I use Audacity.
Uh-huh.
I put everything through Audacity. I will not listen to any audio or anything unless it goes through Audacity, so I can see what it's going on. I can adjust it. I can crop it, cut it, and I can make files as I'm reviewing.
Uh-huh.
But and I've taught people to do this, but then people would always say, "I said, well, how you review?" Well, I just plugged my headphones into my recorder, and I was
Right.
reviewing. I'm like, yeah, that's not going to do it.
You got to
You'll
see the
miss, you'll miss
waveforms,
a
yeah.
lot of things.
Yeah.
Well, it's just you know that you could crank it up really loud on Audacity. You can pick up all these files
Uh-huh.
where you can't hear it on these recorders. They're
True.
not that loud.
It's true.
So to me, that's volume is first, and then yeah, then you could separate the waves, and you can see if something
Yeah.
is
When you're
interacting.
looking, I'm looking at it right now, and I know so little. I mean, I know the minuscule amount of working with sound and equipment and stuff like that. I'm not an expert of any kind, believe me. And
Mhm.
j- just from editing, for my own show, I can look at I can say, and I'm looking to try to take some of them out because that's one of my things. I say like 10 times, in 5 minutes. But I know what it looks like, is what my point
Yeah,
is. The different
yeah,
waveforms that come through. And a lot of times you'll see in EVPs, you see the person stop talking, do you have something to say?
right.
And then there's nothing. You don't hear anything, but you see this little pop. And if you pull it up, like you're saying, you can, wow, because they don't
Yeah,
have, everybody likes to put things in a file. Well, a ghost speaks on this frequency and is able to, no, everybody's an individual. Every ghost is going to have different, yes, there's frequencies of, usually they'll say, of a vibration. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is
right,
one might have more energy. One might be able to do something a little bit better than another because they've practiced it, or that's their will to do that. Like the movie Ghost. We talk about that a lot on here. It's as silly as it seems. There was a lot of truth in that. And it took that
yes,
guy a long time to move that penny. And he went back to the guy on the subway or the train or whatever, teach me to do
right,
this. Um, each one is going to be different. So one might be able to come through very softly, and one might come through more
yes,
boisterous. And sometimes it sounds like they're speaking through a. Do you ever, the fans when we were kids, and you get behind them and you'd almost sound like Darth Vader, like you're talking through a moving fan?
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's just,
Sometimes
Oh
it's
yeah,
like that. Their frequency's different. They're vibrating on a different frequency, and it's going to come through
right,
differently. That's just
right.
my thoughts on it.
And as if you're a very creative and I'll say more seasoned investigator, you're going to go out of your way to realize exactly what you're saying and try and find things to to amp up certain areas. I mean, years ago we started with, remember the old boom boxes?
Yeah.
Everybody had the big radios and the boom boxes. Well, we would carry those to locations and homes, and we would, if there was certain activity in a certain room, we would take that boom box, we'd go up there, we'd put it on, we'd turn it on full blast, pure static, and we'd let it run for 15 minutes. And basically, it was static charging that room because when you would come in 15 minutes later, you could feel the static in there,
Mm.
and we would do that, and the things that we would capture was like incredible, and it would help the spirits communicate a little better, um, and it really worked. And these are things you don't see people doing. I won't get into a lot unless you want to talk about equipment of nowadays, which to me is a bunch of garbage. I don't believe in a lot of the stuff that they're putting out there, but they're making a lot of money doing it. So,
Yeah. Well, the thing
and
is, if I
everybody
don't
wants the
understand
instant ghost,
something,
you know?
if I don't
Yeah,
understand how something works, I can't tell if it's
right,
working or not. Do you know what I'm saying?
right. Yeah,
And I can't rule out other things. Like you mentioned earlier, there's been plenty of times I've been on a construction site. I used to be in construction, and I've driven a truck, and I've used CBs, and I've, you know,
sure.
all that different stuff. So you have a walkie-talkie, and you walk into an area, and you're picking up some other, group, could
Sure.
be a mile away, and you can hear them
Right.
talk. So I'm not sure. And I'm not really big on that white noise thing just because I can't stand listening to it. It's so loud and it's just like, ugh. And it gathers words or it runs through
Yeah. I
the tuning dial
eh,
thing where it's that one. I'm
yeah.
like, oh, I can't
Yeah.
do that. But
I don't do 'em. I
yeah,
won't do
I
them.
don't
And I
get
have
it.
experimented with them. But to me, even if you're getting results that you can't prove that it is because it's so broken up that you can't really even if it is a ghost, I don't want to have a recording that's all broken up. I want a crystal clear,
Right.
quiet, clear recording.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
or
understandable.
I'd rather not have it. I'd rather not have it, and
Right,
that's
that's
how I am.
understandable.
So
And it's funny because we were talking in another conversation about Mark Nesbitt, and he sat here and told me, he said, Cisco, the best EVP I have ever heard in his, like, 40 years now, something close to it, of investigating or at least being interested in it and getting it, gathering information, was taken on a Mickey Mouse recorder that one of that was sitting, one of the kids had that was in the household, and it came across
yeah,
this Mickey Mouse recorder, and the old cassette recorder, brand new cassette, just opened up. A lot of people, I remember a lot of people doing that, but if you've got one that you're using all the time, you don't use new tape and things like that. There's bleed over. There's all kinds of things going on. So that's what I mean. I don't understand a lot of the equipment. I got to go on an investigation with some very trusted people. You know them as well, KSPS with
mm,
Dave
oh
and
yeah, love them.
and Jim. Oh, I love them so much.
Great
And that's one of those groups
guy
you're talking about. The
and girls.
heart, the chemistry,
Yeah,
and with Mike Simpson,
yeah,
and you just walk in there and you just like, okay, here we go. And I think, I really believe that a ghost that has any kind, has intelligent, we're talking about intelligent haunting, they can feel you coming. If the evil
mm,
knows you're coming before you do, and you connect into that, and then, try to ward you off from going to help a family, we all know those stories, then the good can too. Like, what's this?
yeah.
What's this coming? This light, this feeling, this vibration. And I think if you've got a group like that that's all together like minded, you're going to get so much more
Yeah.
good evidence. I just believe that.
Well, I met them the first. I met them at the first bash, Gettysburg bash, and they were so impressive. And I love that they had a big full screen
Hmm.
TV set up, and they were showing all their evidence. And I hate to say it, but there was really nobody else in the room that was doing what they were doing.
Sure.
Everybody else was pretty much promoting themselves, and I'm very similar to them. It's not about me; it's
Right.
about the ghost.
It
And
is.
they were just focused on, hey, look at this. And they showed so many great pieces of evidence all
Yes.
weekend. I was just drawn to them, and I became
Hmm.
friends with them.
Hmm.
And we're still, and I plan to work with them. I haven't gotten to do that yet, but
Wonderful.
I just I enjoy their work. They
I
all
do
do great
too.
work.
And I mean, they'll have like
Yeah,
CDs on the table, like, here, this is a CD of all our EVPs. And here's,
yeah, they're just,
here's
Yeah.
film, here's the DVDs with film on
Yeah.
it and stuff, and they
All
have.
about sharing.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think we're seeing more of that, Mike. I really do, because when you go
Yeah.
into the
I hope
bash
so.
and you look around, it's like uh, Paranormal Inc. With Dave and Ernie, same thing. Um, so many Paranormal Elite, Twisted Paranormal. They're all um, that type, of like-minded people that are trying to do that. And we just had a guest on not too long ago, Steve and I, ghostquest.net. And I try to tell everybody, go there, put your evidence up there. If you've gone to one of these sites that are posted, like you'll take like Washington, you can hit, it's a United States map, and you just hit your state, and then your state comes up, and all the hauntings, all the history, and he welcomes all different people to come. Tell us your experience. If you have an EVP, put it on there. If you have evidence pictures, put it on there. Just so all the paranormal groups and all the paranormal, people who are interested can come together in one place. It's like a paranormal unity. This is it.
Oh
Go
yeah.
there. And I think
Yeah.
that's a
He,
wonderful
he's
idea.
Yeah, Brian is really. I finally got to talk to Brian and got to meet him through you actually when you were posting about his site,
Yeah.
and I got talking to him. I always love to hit up people and just if they're in certain areas. And turns out that I grew up in New Hampshire, and he was from that area. And every place I was talking, he goes, "Oh man, I used to go hiking at that mountain where you were," and he knows the town I was from, and just really hit it off. And I was like, "Wow, this guy is really full of resource."
It's
And
wonderful.
I like what he's doing.
I do too.
Years ago, there was a bunch right in the '80s, early 2006, 2008. There were a lot of groups out there doing this, trying to do this universal network thing where they were trying to get all groups to join their thing as a network.
Hmm.
Um, that didn't work really well because so much drama
Oh,
was going
same.
on. So many
Yeah.
people were fighting to be on TV shows.
Yeah.
But he's doing something really good. He's doing a resource thing.
Hmm.
I really like talking to him, and yeah, definitely, uh, we'll try and refer him. Definitely,
Absolutely. And I think it would be so cool. What if,
yeah.
just say we went to the same church in Massachusetts or something. We sat down and we had similar this, experience. But say I got the lady on the EVP saying something, and you got something 2 weeks later that was similar, but she finished the thought, or you got a little bit more, and we could put that together and go, look what we got here, that she's telling us a story. I think it would be
Exactly.
absolutely amazing, and just because we could all go and see like a residual, like repeating, like the Phantom Regiment in Gettysburg or something, and maybe we all, 3 or 4 different people saw it. But if we got something from an intelligent haunting, that she was actually speaking and trying to tell us what happened to her, or what she wanted, or what her thoughts were, whatever, and we could piece it together, and it's the same voice over different equipment over different day, that would be amazing to me.
Yeah, I love that. I love when that happens.
Oh,
That's important, and a lot of people don't do that. And so it is really good that he's doing something like that. I'm going to advertise him. I know you guys are advertising him.
yeah.
Really would like to get the word out. And yeah, I always see there's a niche market
Yep.
in our industry or our field where people similar to us that really want to dig deep. And then there's other ones that are entertainment and thrill seeking and all
Hmm.
the other
Yeah.
little pockets of the field,
Hmm.
and that's fine. I mean, I don't put anybody down. And float your boat, whatever you like to do. That's
We all
fine.
have different things that
But
drive us.
yeah, but be positive. If
Yeah.
you're negative, I'm not supporting anything that's negative.
Yeah.
No matter
Right.
who you are, and
Right
I
there
don't
with
like
you.
people bashing other groups. If you don't like a group, well, then just don't bother with them, but
Right.
don't talk junk about them either. You
Right.
know,
Right.
it's just like in real life.
Well,
It's the
negative
same
brings
thing.
negative.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and
So
that's just the way that is. But I do see, you were saying something earlier about when you were teaching and you saw certain people with certain intent, or you didn't use that word, but I'm picking that up, it got more. And
I really believe it was vibration.
yeah,
Um, vibration. We emit certain
it's
energy
true.
about ourselves. How we're wound up has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
I'm a quiet person at times, but other times, even though I'm on investigation, I stay quiet. But in my mind is racing because I'm just, I'm I like doing what I do, and I
Right.
think they pick up on that. And
Adrenaline.
I've gotten many recordings of them saying my name and saying hi Mike or hi Michael,
Oh,
uh, 6, 7 different recordings of that. So that's really neat. And I
it
always
is.
introduce myself when I go to places, so that they'll and it proves that they how else would they know my name,
Mm.
unless I introduce myself. So
And I
I
think
have tried to do
kindness
it
goes a
where
long way.
yeah.
I really think kindness goes an awful long way. And of course, it depends on too on, people have asked me and said, well, how can you go in and be calm or be kind to something that's losing its mind and, acting all erratic? And I said, well, sometimes that's exactly what they need. Depending on what you're dealing with. I'm talking about dealing with a human ghost now that's just confused and twisted up and
Well,
angry and, you know?
I I'd love to have these conversations with you and Steve because you're definitely of like-minded as me, and I mean I'm sure you may believe or from experiences. I believe that some of these ghosts or ghosts in general sometimes are living in their own realm in their own time,
Yes.
and we're coming in and we're the ghost.
Yes.
We're actually they see us and they get scared. I have several recordings where things are very scared of me, and you know what? It's like they're terrified, like they just saw a ghost, and I'm like, I'm the ghost.
Yeah.
So
It's so
I
true.
do believe that in certain situations.
Yes.
Um, I've had people crying and telling me to go away. I can't tell you how many recordings I have of "go away, get out of here." Um, stuff we would say if we saw a ghost and we didn't want
True.
them there. So,
And see,
what's your thoughts on that?
sometimes flipping it and trying to get a different vantage point on things can really be, well, eye opening because I absolutely believe that too. And Steve and I were talking just the other day. I can't remember where anymore. I know we were talking to each other about it. And I said, until I wrote the book, and even while I was writing the book, I'd sit back and I'd write a couple paragraphs because I'm trying to remember, and then I go back and read it again, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to fill in here, I don't want to embellish, I don't want to, and I'm doing all that kind of stuff. And I'd just be honest and say, I really don't remember what happened right here, or I'm not going to put that in because I'm not 100% sure, and I'll say that because our minds sometimes fill in blanks. I believe when we're
Uh,
remembering. And
by the way, the book is excellent. I just
oh
started reading it. I've been running this whole week, and I've been traveling. Yesterday, I just got back from 3 different states in 2 days.
wow,
Um, and 867 miles since Saturday. Um, but I started reading it and I love it.
thank you so
And
much.
I can't wait to get into the chapters. I read the forward and I was like, oh my, the forward was so good.
Hear that, Steve?
Yeah,
Yeah.
see,
That's great.
even read Steve forward.
Yeah.
It's good stuff, man. I mean, it's well. The
Is
thing is, I think it's honest.
you
You
speak
know,
from the heart.
yeah. And
Yeah.
here's my experience, and here's how it happened, and this is what I heard. This is what I smelled. This is what I felt. This is what I thought at the time. This is what I
Oh
thought
yeah.
10 years later after I learned some things. This is what I found out another little piece of information. So that flipped the script a little bit, and changed up. But my thing was when my mom, I was like 12 when I lost my mom, and she would a lot of suffering. Bless her heart. She, cancer. It was nobody should have to go out like that. It was just terrible. And I started waking up, and she'd be in the room. My point for bringing this up was I walked around with guilt for the longest time, thinking that when I woke up and I noticed her, I said mom, or I stirred and startled her, she would just put gone. You know,
Mm,
not like a little tingle in out like Tinkerbell or something like that. Just gone, like, whew.
Mhm.
And I
mm,
thought it was my fault because she didn't want to scare me, or I wasn't supposed to
right.
see her. I was breaking a rule or something. I mean, 10,000 million things went through my head. But until recently, until I wrote the book and I started getting other people's perspectives on it, I stopped. And Steve and I were talking. I just stopped in mid set and I said, Steve, what if she thought I was the ghost? What if she had no intention of being there, but because wherever she was in her place and time, she just loved me so much that love connected the both of us. And she
Yeah.
was as surprised to see me as I was to see her. You see what I
I
mean?
believe that.
Different perspective. It could be. And that could be
Uh,
happening to these ghosts, like you
oh
said.
yeah, definitely. I had an instant. I lost my younger brother in 2000. And he was 29, and he was a fishing fanatic, and he loved. He traveled everywhere to fish, and the home that we had in New Hampshire was on a pond and a big lake, and he passed away there. And it was 6 years later when I bought my place in Tennessee, little farm up in the mountains. My older brother was there with me, and we were outside putting up a light pole. He's an electrician. We were doing some work, and we were talking about my brother. And I just took a picture of my brother, my older brother, working, and in the window, looking out of it, is my actual younger brother. And I
Oh,
captured a photo.
Oh, wow.
And he had curly, wavy hair and glasses, and he was looking out the window. And I was like, "Wow, holy crap,
yeah.
that blew my mind."
Yeah.
And he passed away in New Hampshire, and now I'm all the way here in Tennessee. So, yeah, spirits can travel; they can
You
go
bet they
wherever.
can.
And we were talking about him,
Amazing.
and I took two pictures. One that had nothing in it, and it was a beautiful, clear day. And the second one, where he's in the window, there's this misty fog that had come down and was blocking part of the roof line just above the window where he was. And I was like, "What the hell is this?"
Right.
It blew my older brother away, and me and him are the big believers in this in our
Hmm.
family. The rest of the family not very supportive
Right.
of what they do, and they don't believe in it, and they don't like it, and it scares them, and all these other crazy things. So I just don't tell them about what I do,
Yeah.
and that's fine. I had to deal with that over the years because that was hard. That you
Yeah.
love something and you want to share, and when it comes to family, they're either for it or nope, they don't want to know anything about it.
That's the truth. Steve and I both know
Yeah,
that. He got lucky and his mom believed, and I know my mom did. My mom was very, my whole female side of my family was very, let's say, spiritual,
right.
Yep.
and my grandmother would tell me stuff about, she never said Bigfoot, but she would say, I forget, and it wasn't anything you've heard uh, recently, or Sasquatch or anything like that. It was just, there are things in the woods that belong there and we don't. And the things that they're connected spiritually. They know things that we don't. They've been around longer. They're more connected with things. Little tidbits and things like that.
I
That's
love
what.
that.
Oh,
Oh,
people always ask. If Bigfoot's brought up, and I'm again not an expert at all, but if Bigfoot is brought up or something, they say, "Well, what do you think? Do you think he's this? Do you think he's that? Do you think he's this?" I'm like, "Yeah." Anything, just because we don't know how to cross the dimensions yet, or as common knowledge, doesn't mean they don't. I totally believe in portals and time slips, and because I don't know
yes,
enough about it to not believe it.
I,
If
I definitely believe in that. And I've had some experiences with that. But somebody just brought up a point recently that Bigfoot or Sasquatch or whatever you want to call them, may be more of an entity.
hmm
Um, and why else are we not able to capture them?
hmm
All these years.
hmm
Uh,
I
and
hope we
I
never
mean,
do.
anything's possible. I don't know,
Yep.
but I find when the number one thing when I first realized that ghosts were real, and I recorded the first one, the first thing I said to myself is, "Oh my God, now I have to believe in UFOs and
Yeah,
Bigfoot."
it's true. But it's true because the thing is, it's like what I said. I don't know enough about it to disbelieve it. Like people ask me, "Do you believe in reincarnation?" And I said, if you're forcing me to pick a pro or a con here, I have more evidence that it's highly possible and probable than I do that it doesn't exist. Do you see what I'm saying? So as far as that goes, we're just discovering things in the ocean, large or small. We're discovering things we haven't even gone to that many other planets. We don't know that much about it. And that's just, we're a small tiny little, speck in a grand huge picture that we're not even sure how
Oh
big
yeah,
it is. So absolutely. I honestly believe that just about anything is possible. Do I think it's probable? That might be a different thing, but I absolutely believe there are things. I'm sitting right now talking to you guys. I'm in the dark. I've got a laptop screen lighting up the room as much as that does, and a couple couple candles, and I'm 6 feet from two great big glass picture windows, and that's 2 feet away from the wood line. So
Mhm.
I could be sitting
Right.
here right now, and there could be a Bigfoot sitting,
That's
six
right.
feet from me.
Right.
And
You just don't know.
listen,
And Steve, what's your take on that?
I'm kind of in the middle there.
Yeah.
Some of it, it's not really one way or the other. There's a lot of gray areas, a lot of overlap.
yep.
Right.
So
For
it's
me, as far as like doing shows and like writing books or doing a TV show, I will only share things I've really truly experienced and I've
mm,
proven to myself, and try to debunk things. Uh, and I use that as my experiences, and I don't use the word believe ever because to me, um, it doesn't fit in the paranormal.
yeah,
I
Mm,
want proof. I want evidence. You know, I want 10 people to listen to one thing, of investigators and give their opinions. So, yeah, I mean, oh my God, the sky's the limit with the things that you're
yeah.
talking about
There's
in
not a
our
one
universe.
size fits all. But now my first
Now,
two books, those were other people's stories that I collected, and I
oh,
didn't
nice,
vet those. I didn't try to go out and verify them. It's like just basically folk tales. This is what had.
right,
Did anything ever happen to you? Did you ever see anything strange in the woods? And I got those stories back, and I just took those at face value because I'm not trying to really prove anything or do anything with that other than entertain. But now my third book, My Strange World, what happened? I'd go on shows like this talking about my first two books, and inevitably the host, or if it was a call-in show, somebody would want to know, have you ever had any experiences with the paranormal? So I would tell this one or that one, and eventually I got around to writing them down. I had enough to make a book, and those are all true the way they happen. I mean, I can take you exactly to the places where they occurred, and
nice.
the way I tell it there is exactly what I remember. I'm like Cisco. If I don't remember, I don't put it in there,
yep.
or I'll clearly state I don't remember exactly, but this is what I
Right.
remember. To the best of my ability, this is what I remember happening.
Hmm.
Oh, I look forward to reading that. Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds
Oh, they're
really
good.
interesting.
Yeah. And I think that
And
comes from a
I wanted,
hunger that we had as children trying to find our own
yeah,
information out. And now that we have some information and we're still not sure of, on everything that we have, but we're trying to put it out as truthfully as possible. I think all three of us are doing that in our own way
Sure.
because we want that kid who's seeking information and seeking knowledge and seeking confirmation that they saw something and they're not the only one. And I think
hmm,
that we all had our own moment in time where we stood in one place and got that. Whether it was
yeah,
me with the Hans Holzer book or seeing
Right.
hearing your first EVP over that recording. That's amazing. And you probably
Right.
in
hmm,
your own little mind tried to figure everything you possibly could,
Oh,
what it could
yeah.
be.
Yeah.
you know
sorry,
Well, I
I'm
did multiple
snorting
recordings
here in the
again.
mic.
it's okay.
Yeah. Sure. Go right ahead.
Have sinus issues. But I was just going to say,
Oh, yeah.
mine was different. Like yours, it was just right off the bat, boom. Whereas my first experience was I saw an apparition, and it didn't really scare me or anything. And I've talked about first ghost. I saw a kid run across the street down in their yard. He fell down. He disappeared. There's no hole,
Wow.
no place a kid could go. And it didn't scare me. It was just, but like Cisco said, it just kind of turned me off. I thought, wonder what that is. I know that's not supposed to happen, but it happened.
Hmm.
Wonder
Right.
why. And then I started seeking the information out. So I kind of came at it that way. And you mentioned my books here. If this airs on Halloween or right before,
Oh yes, tell them.
my books are all free Halloween day for that 24 hours
Awesome.
on
Wow.
Amazon. So look for Steve Stockton on Amazon.com. Now, not the book that Cisco and I wrote together. That's her book, and that's still for sale. But mine are
We're supposed
free
to
just for
go
that one
there.
day. That's for my birthday.
There you
I give
go.
away
Oh,
something on my birthday.
And happy
oh,
birthday,
it's your
buddy.
birthday. Happy birthday,
Thank you.
Halloween.
Halloween day. He's our pumpkin.
That's that's amazing.
Isn't that something? Yeah.
I'll definitely throw those. I have multiple. I actually run several different paranormal groups, and I've done it over the years just to like I run and I founded North Carolina Ghost Society. I have Raleigh Paranormal Society because that was here in Raleigh where I live. I wanted to get the local cases and things like that, and then I have the Heritage Hunters as well. So I still have those sites, so I can throw your things on all. all those different pages.
Oh, we
Oh,
certainly
that'd be great.
appreciate
If you'd
it.
plug my YouTube channel, 13 Past Midnight, I appreciate that too.
Well,
Yeah.
I
sure
just
will.
started that back in February, and
Oh,
I'm
that was
still
your
trying to
show.
get the word out about it.
Yeah,
That's a
Steve.
great show, and
Yeah,
I
Steve
love
does.
listening to those audio and stuff. Oh, I love that stuff. It reminds me, I grew up as a kid listening to the radio, and like Orson Welles used to have shows on, and different people I didn't even know, and they would all have these really wild stories, and I would just sit there for hours
I
listening.
know.
And
Didn't we
your
love it?
show remind me just of that.
Oh, it does. And you can tell the nostalgia kind of like in both of our shows. Like Steve is pretty
Yeah,
much my co-host. There's very few shows that Steve isn't on because the reason being not only do I just love having him around and love, having that comfort, of a friend and a friendly voice on the other side, but because he has so much knowledge and somebody will say, something and he'll be able to connect to it where I might not be able to, or we both can, and then we can. It's just amazing. And when he came up with his YouTube channel, and I know we mentioned it before, but all the little stories, there might be 5 minutes, it might be 3 minutes, but it might be 20 minutes, half hour, but you're going to get a story and it's going to have like a nostalgic kind of feel to it, even if it's a listener story or something else. And it does harken back to those. I remember many a nights not being able to sleep, not wanting to go to school the next day or whatever was going on, and you lay there and you turn that
I was
radio
always,
and
yeah,
listen
we
to
never wanted to
CBS
go to school,
Mystery
so that
Theater.
was,
I mean,
yeah.
Listen to that. And then there used to be a guy I listened to on one of the channels out of New York, and this is like back in the probably the early 60s, late 70s, called Long John Nebel.
yep,
Oh, I
And
think,
he was like
yeah,
Art Bell before Art Bell came
yep.
along. He would talk,
right.
he's like, okay, tonight we're going to talk about UFOs. And he'd have like Jackie Gleason or somebody on there talking about UFOs with him, or tonight, listener ghost stories, kind of the same
Hmm.
thing Art Bell was doing. And I
Yeah,
would pick that up. I could only get it at night, because it was on AM and the
right.
propagation of the radio waves there. But I could pick that up way down in Tennessee on certain nights. And
Oh,
it was a
yeah.
thrill when I found that show.
I
And
tell you,
wasn't it great to have that resource?
yes,
And back then, little transistor radios. I mean, everything was free,
yes,
and
Hmm.
you tuned in, and it was magical to me.
it was
Oh,
magical.
To
yeah.
It
have,
was
and
magical.
I still have that memories to this day because
Yep,
of that.
and
And
it's
then when
And
you were a
great.
kid, did you ever build a crystal set? That blew my mind.
no,
Did that
I
like
think I
Cub
told my
Scouts, like we're gonna make a radio, and it's a
love.
rock and like a round oatmeal box, and some copper wire and a nail and all this, and it's like you can hear it. There's people talking there. It's a radio.
It's amazing. But see that
Yeah,
that's a little part of it. We're like only going back, 45, 50 years, whatever. But
yeah.
like Michael was saying in the beginning, to go back 100, 150 years, 200 years, and how those people lived. Can you imagine? I know
Wow.
it sounds weird, but I often think, what would my grandmother think right now? What would my mother think right now? When she died in 76. So we didn't have
Mm,
anything, you know.
yeah.
We didn't even have cable then. We didn't, and she used to get so
That's the same year
excited to,
my grandmother
yeah.
died, and it's same thing. I was like 13 years old, and she was the source of a lot of my stuff. She was a self-professed gypsy witch, so she would tell me all these tales and superstitions and how to do things. She told fortunes. She read coffee grounds and tea leaves and
Entrails.
animal entrails. Yeah, that was how she could tell how the crops were going to be next year. When
Wow.
they had their own, they farmed and they raised their own meat, and when they were getting ready to butcher hogs, she would pick one out. And when they butchered that hogs, I don't know how it worked. She poked around in it with a stick or
Oh,
something, and
God.
then she would predict what the next growing season was going to be like. And she was accurate. She was as accurate as the old Farmer's Almanac. So
Isn't that something?
That is
And it
interesting.
sounds
That
crazy, but
really is.
didn't somebody one night you told that and somebody called in and said that was an old, was it Romans? Somebody did it? What,
yeah, so like
Greek?
the Nordics or the
Mm-hmm.
Vikings or
Yeah,
somebody did that. It's like wow.
sure. Wow, that
But
is
Isn't it
I think they would
amazing.
crazy?
do it like before they went into battle or something to tell
Mm-hmm.
how to be victorious or how good their luck would be in battle. But yeah, I didn't realize it was that old.
Yeah, but see, that's
Oh,
the
yeah.
norm on things like this, and I often wonder. Um, I hate it that we're not like the Waltons anymore. I know that sounds crazy, but I really do.
Yeah.
I think we,
You,
I mean, just my
that
opinion.
thing's true.
I think we send our kids to. go off to work and send our kids to daycare, like 4 weeks. And I'm thinking, oh my God. I mean, I didn't let anybody raise my babies. I quit my jobs and I drove an old jalopy and I went without. I raised my kids. And I
Yeah.
mean, not everybody can do that, but I did. I just
Yeah.
went with, I
And
took from me.
that was a great show. I used
Oh,
to watch it all the time, and I was just recently through that Charlottesville area, and I thought about the Waltons,
oh
but
my gosh.
I think a lot of my sensibilities came from that
I do
show.
too.
I always watched it, and
Hmm.
and we grew up in New Hampshire. We didn't have a lot of money, um, and but still I valued what they were teaching.
Absolutely. And the older folks were right there. They lived right in the bedroom there. They were sitting at the dining room table every night and they gave their wisdom. A kid that had a problem, they got everybody's opinion, dad, mom, and then grandpa would, kick in or grandma. And I just
Yeah,
think that that's the way it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be a
well,
tribal thing and
it
everybody
was.
stays
My mom
together.
talks about not only did her grandmother live with him, but her great grandmother for a few
Yeah,
years until she passed
Oh,
away. And 4 generations there in the same
it's
house.
amazing.
It's
oh,
just amazing. And they had a big family. My grandmother had 10 kids, 9 boys, and my mom. So
oh,
it was hard to put anything over on her when I was a kid because she'd heard and seen it all.
and
And back then, the kids helped raise the other kids. The bigger kids
sure,
helped raise the other kids. And
Yep.
they had a big family because they had a dairy farm and a beef farm, and that was free farm hands.
oh
And
Just,
yeah,
it had to
so
be a
my
yeah,
mom had to
wonderful way to
watch the
live.
smaller kids and help cook because my grandmother cooked for all those people and an army of farm hands, real farm hands.
Mm.
yeah.
So it's amazing. She made her own soap. And if you've ever been scrubbed with a bar of lye soap, that's an experience you won't forget. It'll take the hide off of you,
Absolutely true.
Take all that dirt, all the layers of dirt too.
dirt, everything. Yeah.
Yeah,
Lye soap, boy, yeah, no
yeah,
kidding. But see, that's just it, the
yeah,
wisdom. And I think, reaching back into history, whether, like I said, a living history from the dead, there's wisdom there. And I mean, wouldn't it, think
yeah.
about it, in the on the greatest day to be able to sit there and talk to Ben Franklin. What was it like? What did it look like from your perspective, or talking to one of these soldiers and getting their perspective on just stuff going on around them, you know uh
Oh yeah, definitely
listening
amazing.
to even little pieces of it, or a lot of times people use equipment. I don't know how you feel about people being sensitive and being able to communicate and stuff like that, but I just love the whole thing, bring it all in there,
Yeah,
but bring the
yep.
heart back. And people are giving gifts that they can hear these things. I was on one. It was one of the most amazing things. I mean, I get certain things certain way, this person gets certain things certain way, and this person, but you go in and nobody says anything to each other, and you're just picking up what you pick it up. You go back outside, and you're kind of writing down your little notes of what you got, and then you compare them, and you're all getting the same thing. Or
Right. Oh, definitely.
you're getting the same thing, but I've got this tail end over here. What do you have? And then they have this over here, and it's all going together. And on another one, two absolutely fabulous mediums, one was medium psychic and one was medium. They were seeing the same entity, but but ghost. And
Right.
the ghost was manifesting to each one differently, which was
Mm.
wild at the same time.
Oh,
Because,
oh, I believe that.
yeah, well, when you get one that's been around a while and has learned some little tricks and, this and that,
Yeah.
like we said earlier, they can do that. Like, say, one that, it comes to you and they're a young child, like a young
Right.
child, either themselves or they're mimicking another. And then they come as the angry man who died or, committed suicide or whatever, because they felt like you'd pay more attention to him if he came as an innocent child. But this one was able
Right.
to see his real self. I mean, it's amazing. And I think that's one of the things too that I get with when somebody comes and says, I'm a paranormal expert from, soup to nuts. I'm soup to nuts paranormal
Yeah.
expert. It's like,
There you
how
go.
can you
Run,
be? How can
run.
you be? How can you
Well,
be?
then get the bullshit boots on
Yeah,
because
yeah.
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely.
Now I do believe that there's people that especially someone that's an author is an authority on things. But if you've done it long enough and you've experienced things and collected experiences, yeah, you could be an authority. and that makes a good author.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but expert, when you're on the even I always say even when you're on the other side, I think a lot of ghosts don't even know what are going on,
100%.
and
Amen,
they're
brother.
not experts even on the other side. So
Amen.
you know,
Oh
yeah,
gosh, truer words never spoken. Because
yeah,
they come
Excuse me. Sorry.
across, through, like I said, years of collecting information and trusted, you know, uh, different events, and then seeing them myself. That's the thing. They come
yeah.
here, and do you know want to know the number one collected bit of information that I've received over multiple years from many different directions? It's love. It's love.
Yeah.
Love continues. I'm fine. Stop worrying about me. I'm watching you. I was at the wedding. I saw the birth. I heard you when it was my birthday and you said happy birthday. I was there when you were singing the song. I'm okay. I'm better now. There must be a thing that they go through, and I think each individual goes through their own thing, but they seem to come back better. When they come to visit or they come to communicate. And it's always a message of love to a loved one. Or tell my wife I love her. That's the number one thing they want, or my child. And I think if that's all I get out of this, that love continues and our pets live on and they still care and they feel the same things I'm feeling about them, then that's all I need out of this. Everything else is just icing, you know?
Yeah. Um, I totally agree with you. I like to try and ask different questions. I'm not a big fan of throwing a lot of questions at people because if I was sitting somewhere,
Right.
I wouldn't want to be bombarded with 15 questions
Mhm.
in 10 minutes.
Mhm.
And I see that a lot with people. I try and just be quiet and like when there's definitely children around, I always ask, do you have a message for your family? Or I'll say, your family sent me to see how you were doing.
Mhm.
And I've gotten really great responses. One little girl said, I don't see them. And I was like, wow,
Yeah.
that's really intelligent. Um, and I've gotten multiple children. I'm actually doing a case right now that the first episode of the show is going to be on this place called Country Squire Inn. And so a wonderful restaurant, and winery, and vintage motel, a huge property that I've been investigating since 2010, all the way up until now. And there's a little girl that stays there, and I've captured her many times on recording. So just amazing. And we can't figure out why she's there.
Mhm.
Nobody's died on the property, but they did bring in different buildings from the area,
Right.
buy them up for a discounted price. One of the oldest buildings from the 1700s. They connect it, and that's the wine tasting room, and that's where we get a lot of things. But yeah, children are it's fascinating. Yeah,
Yeah, it
you know,
is. And now this little girl that you get, if you don't mind me asking a question,
yeah.
um, has it been the same owners in the place since you've been investigating?
Well, the original owner built the place. He originally started just a small log cabin out in the middle, out in the middle of the country.
Mhm.
It sat 75 people, and it became so successful. He built it in 1961 that he had to keep adding and adding and adding. So
Mm.
he would go around buy wood and bricks and anything he could find from like hotels, old
Wow,
schools.
yeah.
So you have multiple different materials from different places that he put this place together,
Yeah.
and it's set up like a Scottish inn.
Mm.
So he kept it until he passed in the mid '90s, and one of his best workers was a lady from Scotland, and he asked her years ago to come and help him, and possibly then take it over or buy it as he was, ill. And she's been running it since since the mid '80s,
Yeah.
and now she's 76 years old, and but the place has been haunted for years.
Mm.
All the staff members have had experiences. Um, and I've captured so many things there and experienced things. We even have on a thermal video cam, we have a woman floating over the wine tasting bar,
Wow.
and in she's just floating there, and
Hmm.
it's about a 30-second video, which that's a long time.
Right.
Um, Multiple EVPs, but it's an amazing place. Uh, there has to be 10 or 15 different ghosts there easily from all
Well,
the
see,
recordings,
I was
that I have.
thinking too, a lot of times we think building, and of course that's definitely a factor because ghosts can be attached to certain things. They could be attached to a rock that got for
Right.
whatever reason, but or a piece of furniture, or who knows what. But also they can also be attached to the people that are there, and they follow the people, or they're
Right.
attracted to the light. And I've also
Yeah.
seen, and this was something new for me I didn't think of, but of course, ghosts are attached to other ghosts. And I didn't
Right.
ever think of
Never
that.
thought of
They
that.
didn't even know each other in life, but they're attached to another ghost because of their energy, and they don't know what else to do, so they follow that one. And
That's interesting.
they might not even be aware of each other, which is so
That,
wild. I mean,
Oh,
that's why I say, expert in this. There's too many layers. Just too many layers.
I,
uh,
I always say the longer you do this and the more experiences you
More
have,
questions.
the less you know. The
Yeah.
less you know,
Yeah.
because
yeah.
it makes so many more questions that you research that it just widens it, and it's
Hmm.
fascinating,
Cisco
fascinating.
and I have talked about that, how the more we find out, the more questions we have. There's not any answers, there's just more questions, but that's
Yep.
Yeah.
that's half the fun,
What's the
I
Oh
wouldn't
intrigue?
yeah.
want an answer. I wouldn't want to know, okay, yeah, this is this and this is that. I'd rather ponder it and say, what was that? What is
Hmm.
this?
Hmm.
Exactly.
And how is
Exactly.
this? It's like the first thing that anytime that, I mean, I had one where it was the children weren't speaking because the mother was there, and the mother was so scared, and it's so well, I don't want to say rare. I wish it was more rare, but it's not. Where a parent would be there with with children protecting the children, um, and they were all together. But the children didn't speak much, but she was more concerned with them than herself, and we were trying to get, you don't have to stay here. You don't, you, sometimes they create, like you said, it's not, I don't want to say a cage or a bubble, but it's like they feel like they can't leave that area. So they've created their own kind of
Yeah.
place that they can't leave out of. And once they find out it's okay, they can do that. Everything kind of opens up to them or something. But if you have a child that's by themselves, usually they're looking up. Sometimes I've had children, as much as it bothers you to think of a child being here, they sometimes they're the most well-adjusted ghosts I've ever seen. you know,
Yes. Oh
it's an
yeah.
odd way to put it,
This
but it's
one,
true.
this this girl that's at the Country Squire Inn. I originally recorded her in 2010 when just me and the owner were in the back. She was showing me how to lock the back door before she left for the night. And in between us, we didn't know at the time, but I had my recorder going. This little girl came in between us and said, "See Hannah Thistle, see Hannah." And when I heard the recording, I was like, "That's a little girl." I said, "Just being Miss Iris back there." So I sent it to her, and she was like, "Oh my God!" I'm like, "Well, what is the Hannah Thistle?" She goes, "Hannah Thistle is the little cat that stays behind the restaurant, and I named her a few years ago." So that little girl was asking us where Hannah.
Wow.
Oh, really
Wow.
wild.
Right.
And
Well,
that was
see, they
2010, and
know.
now
They
it took
know the
me
stuff is
nine
going
years.
on. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, it took me 9 years. I just captured her again after 9 years.
Oh,
I
wow.
finally got her again. I think it's the same girl. Sounds just like her.
Wow.
And I was in the ballroom and I play piano, so I sat down quietly. I was going to play, and just before I did, this voice comes next to me and says, "Talk with me, talk with me." Very
Oh,
annoyed, like she, like you never talk to me. I was
wow.
oh,
Well, you're
so
saying you're
really good.
getting all these recordings, and I know you've sent some.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
for the listeners that are listening, Steve is going to play them. Do you have any order? I mean, if you'd like to do that now, this is
Um,
great.
I I have no idea how when it gets sent to you, or
Right.
if you just tell me, and I didn't tag any that said specifically what they were, but it just gives me location. So if
Well,
he just
I'll
tells
I'll
me,
stay back, and you and Steve, because Steve has got the controls on the EVPs, and we'll just play them.
and I
And
can just give you a little backstory.
sure.
Okay.
Yeah, they ended up in alphabetical order. I don't know if you sent them that way or that's how they.
The
The
ghost did
first
it.
That's
one
probably how.
The
looks
ghost did
like
it.
APP Courthouse, McLean. There's
Okay.
Brushy Tour, Crack, Cinnamon, Dry Run, Gym, DSF,
Okay. So
That's
if you want to
great.
start with
Gifford.
the first
Yeah.
one is really interesting, and you may want to bump it up a little bit. I went to Appomattox Courthouse. Fascinated to go there. It was about a 3 hour drive. I work for myself, so during the week I can make schedules to do things. And I went up there one day. Nobody was in the home other than the tour guide down below. And I was just standing upstairs in the McLean house. Um, and I asked this question. You can go ahead and play that.
Okay, I'll play it twice. Here's the
Yeah,
first
play
time.
twice. That'd be great.
Whoops, it went right into the second one. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Here's the first one again. Oh, was that the first one? Okay. There you go. Haven't taken it. You send anybody here with me, and then there's sounds almost like Cisco said earlier, like a weapon cocking or something.
It does. Sounds like a
Um,
weapon to me.
if you bump it up louder, there's actually a voice, and it actually says, "I'll stab you."
Oh no.
It's very loud. Yeah, if you could maybe bump it up.
Try
Let
one
me
more
see if
time,
I can
Steve.
get a little bit more volume on there. Okay, let's try this.
I've got all I can give you over here, kiddo.
Oops, wrong one. Sorry.
That's all right.
It's on a playlist and it keeps going to the next one. Yeah, I clearly heard it that time in the background. I'll stab you.
Stab you.
I'll stab you. Yeah.
And that was at
That was amazing.
Appomattox.
I'm sorry,
Play
what was
that
that?
one more time here. Yeah, I heard it in there that time. It's just before that click there at the end.
Cisco, can you hear it? Is it too low for you?
I can barely hear it.
Yeah.
Try one more time.
Well,
Steve.
I've pretty much got all the gain
That's
I
all
can
the
get
gain?
here.
Okay.
But we'll play it again. Cisco, if you want, you could edit these in, like
Yeah,
when
I
you're
certainly
editing
will. That's a
and
great
just stick
idea.
them in there,
That
Oh
way
yeah,
it'd
that'd
be
be
nice.
great. And that
That
way,
is a
and then
great
that way
idea.
everybody can hear them because
Sure,
I'm
sure.
hearing them great
really,
here. It's loud. It seems really loud here.
yeah,
And if
they're
they're not,
very clear. So
Yeah,
if you could edit that in
I
for your
sure
listeners,
will.
that would be awesome.
I sure
let's
will.
go
That's a
ahead and
great
go to
idea.
the next
I
one
thought,
here. It says brushy tour crack times 3.
okay, that was about 2 or 3 years ago. I went to when Brushy first started offering um, groups to come in to investigate. We actually were able to get in there early before they finished their construction, and that's really why we wanted to go in because it wasn't fully renovated and they didn't have a lot of electric in the different areas. And so we went for an entire night. We did about 12 hours, and on the little tour that they give in the beginning, I always run my audio because I like to document the stories that they're saying. And just as we were going up the stairs, you hear this person calling out and saying something. So go ahead and play it.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like a female voice saying crack.
Crack. I don't think it's a female. I actually think it's a male because there were no females on the property.
Okay.
And it could be the way it got sent to you also, but it was a male voice screaming to us, crack. Now, we don't know if it was he wanted crack, like as far as drugs,
Yeah.
or another kind of crack. We don't know, but I thought it was very interesting.
Play that one more time. Yeah, it's very, very clear in there.
That was a Mulder EVP. That was not a dog, a ghost dog shaking his collar. That was Mulder.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't hear that before.
Steve, yeah, Steve's got a dog. His name is Mulder. Every once in a while, he'll shake his collar. That was
stand up and shake.
That was not an EVP.
Yeah.
That's really cool too. I'm telling you, the first one, the first time I heard it, just being in the Army and using a lot of different weapons or stuff, was that something that happened, a sound that happened, in real time in your investigation?
It may have been my camera because I was probably taking, I carry my audio in one hand on a little tripod, and I probably was taking a picture with my camera, which could sound like a gun. So I was definitely probably
It
snapping at
did
the
sound
time.
like
Okay.
somebody cocking a hammer back
That's
to me,
exactly.
or
Yeah.
working a lever action.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm. Sounded
We'll
like
study it more. Maybe. Yeah. It most likely it's my camera.
right.
Because I take
Just
multiple pictures
real
while I was up
quick,
there.
I just because I really want to share this, and I know Steve, you've heard this, so forgive me, but it's somebody that does as many EVPs. I don't know if you've ever heard the story. It was a Waverly House. I'll tell it really fast. Way back in the '70s or something, some news show was doing a Halloween shtick, and they sent a reporter to Waverly House, and she really wanted to take it seriously, you know. So she went to Richard Sennett at the time, who that now, like I said, we're going back like 30, 35 years, 38 years, and he was the local ghost person, and he said, look, there get a lot of music boxes playing when there's no music box there, the piano and different things. So this is what I suggest: take a recorder, and she had the old cassette recorder where you push down the two buttons to record.
Sure.
And he said, just put it on before you walk in and run it the whole time. And then when you come out, listen to it. So she did. And she heard some things. She took it to her sound guy in the news group. He heard some things and he starts analyzing it. And he hears this one, and they heard a little bit of music and some other stuff. But this one really intrigued him. And he said, no matter how many times I hear this, it sounds like somebody's playing pool. Was there a pool table there? She said, no. So he goes through more analyzing and stuff, and he goes and plays pool, hits the balls, and then matches it up, and it's so close. The sound waves, so close for
Oh
everything,
wow.
but it's just off. And he thinks, hold on a minute. He goes to a museum that keeps billiards, a billiards museum with different stuff. He talks to the guy, and he says, "Well, when was this house? What's going on? Tell me a little bit about." He said, well, that's because the balls changed. And they used to
Wow.
be made out of this substance. I think it was ivory or something, wasn't it, Steve?
Mhm.
And
Yeah, it was
then
ivory.
after this date, they started being made of this. He said, hang on a minute, I'll get a set. They recorded it. He went back, it matched perfectly. So
Oh
not
wow.
only did they get an EVP that was fairly clear, they got an EVP of billiards being played, 100 years before. And
Oh
that
yeah.
blew my
I,
mind. That
I,
is the craziest EVP I ever heard.
oh yeah.
That's what Whaley House in San Diego,
Yep,
right?
yep, yep. And it's on,
Okay.
and it's, guess where it was? It was on an old sightings show.
I have one. The family I was telling you about that was dealing with the spirit that was tormenting and this and that. They kept hearing jazz music, and they said that the former owner loved jazz music. So, I always make people leave for 2 or 3 hours if I investigate. I will not let them stay in the home. They have to give me the trust to be able to come in and do what I do. Set up all the recorders, and we just stayed quiet. And first thing I asked was, I said, I'm a musician. I play piano. I said, would you like to play some music for us? And that was it. I sat quietly. And upon review, after listening for a while, and we captured some other things, I captured 55 piano notes in a row.
Mm.
One note, one note going crazy. Bing, 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 bing. And towards the end, it almost got like demon like. And I'm not a person that's a demon, but this person was going crazy, banging at 55 notes in a row.
Wow.
And there was no piano in the house.
Oh my gosh. And you wonder
Yeah.
how they do that, how they project, you
Oh,
know,
it's crazy.
because that's a
It's crazy.
projection. It has to be, unless they have a piano in another dimension and they're playing it. I
Which
mean,
I,
EVPs just absolutely boggle my mind. And there was
yeah.
another one that blew my mind too, and I know it was on a show, and I talked about it in, I think, my first episode, but it just boggles you, because if you believe that this is how it happened, and why not, for why not sake, the ghost hunters, they were recording, and they went into a room, and this was a room, I can't remember the hotel, but it was one where the princess went. She carried her bed everywhere she went. She stayed the summers in this big hotel thing. Well, they went in and asked some questions, and on the EVP, she's answering them. They cannot hear her in real time. They only heard her back on the recordings. Then the second set went in and were asking questions, and she's like, saying things like, "Why are you bothering me? Of course I see you. What do you know? Or of course I hear you. Where are you?" And she's saying things like this, like you just picture her sitting there brushing her hair, sitting on her vanity, and all of a
Right.
sudden these voices show up out of nowhere. And that one got me because, well, first of all, if it's true, and if it was a fake, they screwed up most of the EVP because they wouldn't stop talking.
Yeah.
They would ask the question and then they'd start talking again. They wouldn't give them a chance to a wide open space to answer. And they talked over and stepped all over the EVP. And I think if it was a fake, they wouldn't have done that. But
No, definitely would not have.
yeah, I mean, how odd is that? And that's almost like a time slip. Or she's in her time, wherever she is. Maybe it's a place she created, and she can hear them. And
Oh
I
yeah.
thought I would have gone right down to the manager where they kept all the journals, and not journals, but a journal of the, back then they used to do these big books where they wrote in all the guests and they said all the little incidents and stuff. And I would have gone back to see if at one time she said, "I kept hearing these guys," when they wrote it down in the journal or something. And I kept hearing these men and I couldn't find them. And, like, again, are we the ghosts to them? You know,
Oh yeah.
that would have
I
been
believe
so
that.
interesting. It would have been so interesting. I'm
I
sorry, I
believe
didn't
it.
mean to interrupt you. You go
Oh, yeah.
ahead, but I just thought that was
Oh
so
no, I
interesting.
believe that there's multiple things. I don't believe it's one thing.
Yeah.
Just depends on, do like people always say, do spirits see each other, or loved ones see each other after they pass away? We don't know for sure. We don't
Uh-huh.
really know.
Right.
Um, I don't bring religion into what I do at all.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I enjoy different religions, but
Mm-hmm.
I do not bring it into what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm a very spiritual person,
Mm-hmm.
and I believe in the spirit, and I believe just like everything else. I don't know what's out there,
Mm-hmm.
um, so I don't want to question it. I just go with it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, doing this for so many over 25 years and capturing so many things and experiences. You just from the different recordings you get, one ghost, yeah, I will ask them, "Hey, do you see this other ghost?" And they're like, "No, I don't see him."
Right.
And then the other say, "No, I don't see him either."
Right.
And
I've had
meanwhile,
that
both
happen.
recorded, yeah, at the same time in
Agree.
the same location.
And
So
then I've
I think
seen
that
just the
blows my mind,
opposite too. I've seen the opposite
right?
happen where we have to go, he's coming. And they
Right?
know something else is approaching. They don't want to be around, whether it's an angry
Oh,
ghost,
Gettysburg.
whatever.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
they are
Gettysburg.
aware. Or they'll tell you you'll have that know-it-all ghost that but do you know what I'm saying? It's like it's in the
Yeah,
house and there's several things going on. Oh yeah, he stays in the cellar. You don't want to talk to him. He's real grumpy.
the
There's one
tower.
guy up in the attic. He comes down every once in a while. He's the one that throws the stuff around, and you'll just have that talker. And there are people like that. That I'm not saying that this is an EVP. This would be like through mediums or communications and using other things to put it all
Right,
together. But there
right.
does seem to be sometimes that know-it-all ghost that knows everybody else, and they're not aware of any of it, but that one ghost knows all of them. That's so
Oh
It'll
funny.
yeah.
it'll try to like hog the microphone or
Yeah.
whatever's being spoken through and won't let any of the other spirits talk. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, no, I
Mm-hmm.
want to talk. I'm going to talk. You guys, stay away. Let me talk.
Oh gosh, if you
In a
did
way,
see, go ahead.
yeah, it'd be great to have one because look at all the information you would get
I
in one
know.
location.
I
Um,
Yeah.
know.
if
And
you
it's
could
scary
get them,
sometimes, because or the kid, like I said, sometimes the little kids get me too, where, there's an incident, I won't name the place, but we've probably all been there or at least heard of it. And it was an orphanage, and there are some of the children still there, and they are stuck. They can't get out, they can't leave because the person who took care of them and tortured them in life is still doing it in death, and they're still there holding them back and keeping control over them. And
exactly what you're talking about.
yep.
Yep.
And that just breaks my heart. And I mean, when I went there, I wouldn't even walk on the same side of the street as the place. I guess if I get anywhere near it, the people in there
Oh,
that own the place is going to be angry because I'm going to be in there. Go now, go now. It's like go across. You go over.
that's
I
okay.
actually talked to a very very famous medium who's on everybody's TV sets all the time. And I said, honey, please gather your people. Let's go. Get somebody to hold her back and take care of her, whatever you want to call it, bind her, hold her back. Let these kids go. Let's get them out of there. And she said, I'm all for it. Let's do it. It
Uh,
just bothers me when, well, they talk about bullying. Think about how much bullying bothers a lot, a living child. Now imagine if you got to go through it in death too. That's not cool.
oh no,
Breaks
no,
my heart.
especially that place. That we investigated there, and
Mm.
we stayed in the basement.
What'd you think?
Got a really interesting photo. It was very quiet. We did get some good recordings, and I really got a really great photo flying over my one investigator's head. A good friend of mine, John. Um, and he was, he's pretty sensitive to things, and he's like, something's around my head. I could just
Oh,
feel it. And I took one shot. There was nothing. The next thing, there was this big white. It wasn't. It was an energy, and it was zooming over his head, and it size at least bigger than a football,
wow.
and it was great. And so we captured that. So I was like, wow.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I wish that they would let us investigate the entire building.
Mm-hmm.
I know that they have tenants upstairs now, so nobody goes up there. But
Mm.
you know, uh, basically, you're allowed to investigate the basement, which
Mm-hmm.
that's there's nothing to investigate. I mean, yeah, that's where the children were, but
Mm-hmm.
you basically got there for 2 hours, so it's hard.
Yeah.
But we did get some things.
It's hard. I had
Gettysburg is an
such a
interesting place.
foreboding feeling off of that house. I cannot tell you. I can't.
Yeah,
I can't even. And I mean, I didn't even know because I wasn't looking for it, and you're just walking. Even if you're just not reading all the signs, if you're busy doing something or you're looking for something else, sometimes you could just walk past like the Jenny Wade house and you won't even really
right,
see it, because it just looks like everything else. And I knew it before I got there. I grabbed my
right,
son's arm and I said, we're somewhere, or I just walked through something so thick here. And he's looking around. I said, well, it could be anything because this whole place
right.
was a battlefield. And I was
Oh
going through
yeah,
that so much. And so was he. And my sons are pretty darn sensitive too. And he just looked and he said, is that it? And when I looked towards it and I focused on it, I mean, I can't even describe the feeling that came over my body. I mean, it
yeah.
was just so, it was like somebody had a hold of one of my kids and was trying to take them from me. I mean, I just felt like the whole mom thing just went stark raving mad in me as well as everything else. It's just, I
Very
couldn't,
sad building.
I couldn't
Yeah,
walk in there. I couldn't do it. Not unless I was going in to try to help, you know. I
right,
just really
right.
couldn't. So that's it. That's so sad. Did you play all the EVPs? I hate to talk over his time when he's got
Oh
these
no,
great
that was
EVPs.
just the first two. I've got the
Okay, go
third
ahead.
one. It's
Hit me up.
cinnamon effort. It's an
Okay.
expletive. I don't know if you can say that, if I can say that on the
Yeah, I
show
don't
or
know.
not,
Now
Cisco.
this
But
one is, yeah, that's up to Cisco. It's the F word.
Okay.
Um, I don't know if that's something you want to play or not, but
Well,
it's
I don't.
very clear.
I don't know if YouTube can censor a ghost. Go ahead and
we'll
Well,
put it
play it
on.
and
We'll
this,
see what
find out.
happens.
yeah,
Okay,
this
here
was
we
a
go.
private investigation, and I'll just give you a little backstory. Private investigation, woman contacted me. I don't do a lot of private ones anymore, or residential, because I'm so busy doing my, filming the show and all that. But this was a retired law enforcement that was having some issues in an apartment. And I said, oh, I'll go. And she had a daughter. So I said, let me go see what I can do. And as I was sitting down to show her the stuff I had collected from the last visit before, I was going to play the EVPs. This voice popped in. Um, and go ahead and play it, and then I'll fill you in
Okay,
on it.
I did find a way to get some extra gain. So tell me this may be too loud. Let me
All
try it
right,
here.
hit me.
Okay, it's thinking.
Mm.
Maybe technical difficulties here. As soon as there it is. It's gonna be the one after this one. Yeah, I definitely heard it in there, but I still don't think it's loud enough.
I'll, I'll edit them in, just like you said, Steve. That was a brilliant idea. I don't know
Yeah.
why we didn't think of that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a loud one. You'll be able to hear it.
Try it one more time here because I'm going to change some settings on this. And oops, that's not it. Sorry, it keeps going to the next one, and there we go. Yeah, I hear it very clearly through my headphones here. So if
Wow.
you
I
cut those
definitely
in
heard
there, Cisco,
something.
that'll be great.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'll get you to help me with that, Steve.
Sure.
Well, the funny story was I was showing this one what I had captured from the visit before, and I just happened to put the recorder on, um, even when I was doing the review because we still didn't know what really was there as far as what I captured. And then she said, "Oh my God, that's my ex-boyfriend," and I'm like, "What do you mean? You didn't tell me?" Because I always ask everyone, who's passed away, and she didn't tell me, and she said, "Well, he died of cancer, and he was really pissed off when he died." Because he wanted to marry me, and I didn't want to marry him, and which I understand, but he was sick, and he figured he was dying anyway, so but so that was him. I said, "Oh, I'm going to show you what I've captured." So he's like, "Fuck it, fuck it."
And that's
I guess he
amazing
wanted.
when they recognize the voice.
Yeah,
I mean,
that was why.
to me, with the frequencies and the difficulties and trying to, that's an amazing thing when somebody, and I've seen it before where somebody's played an EVP and they know who it is, and
Oh
sometimes
yeah,
they know who it is by the tone and what they say because they always said that type of thing. But a lot of times they can actually tell it's the voice of the person.
I have a recording of my father-in-law after he passed away he passed away in New York, and we were in Tennessee, and I was doing some recording one night on the back porch, and I actually got my father-in-law saying hi to me, and he had a very distinctive Brooklyn accent, and I know it was him.
Mm.
Um, I even played it for my brother-in-laws who they always joked around about the paranormal and, thought it was a joke and this and that. So I said, oh, I'll fix them. I played the recording for them. I said, oh, here, listen to who's this? And like, oh, that's Dad. I'm like, oh, that's Dad. Okay. I said, well, that was recorded about a month after he passed away. And their
Wow.
mouths opened up like, what? I said, yeah, okay, thanks. There you go. There's confirmation.
Wow.
That's a good one.
That is a good
Yeah.
one. Wow. I wish I had something like that to show those that don't believe around me. I had gotten the biggest surprise because when you read the book, you'll understand the whole thing that, led up. We weren't really allowed to talk about things that happened in the house. And I was the youngest one. My dad was
Right.
very boisterous. He was a World War II veteran, and he fought in North Africa and the Pacific and
Oh,
around
wow.
there, and Italy. And he used to add a lot of alcohol to it. And we often talk about it's a very interesting thing because you wonder when he came into the house, did he wake something up? Did something take advantage of him? Was it both? I tend to think both, but that's just a guess. But there was definitely stuff going on there, and it definitely amped up when he got angry, or was it making him? It's like the chicken or the egg. But
Right.
nobody in the house mentioned things they were going through because they were scared to death of his reaction, saying it's nonsense. I'm not having that in here, that kind of thing. And so everybody
Yeah.
kind of kept their stuff quiet and within ourselves, and
Mm.
not even amongst ourselves, really, unless the older sisters talked. Nobody told me anything. I was kept from everything, and I was probably
Mm.
seeing the most stuff.
Well,
But
the funny thing is,
yeah, it's
families
so weird, right?
would not. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just so weird. And if you don't communicate about those things, you don't realize how many people saw the same thing or the same type of stuff happened or whatever. And it's just now that I've been doing what I'm doing, and I just matter of factly, this is who I am, this is what's happened. You don't realize the things I go and do, and then we meet up like 10 years later, and you get to spend a couple days with me, and it, leaks out, and they go, oh, I don't really. But then there was this one time, So I finally got when my one sister came up here for something. I can't remember what it was to meet a friend retired or something. And it seemed like over the years she's kind of accepted it. And she's in the back seat of my car. My husband's driving. She's in the back seat, and we're going by where my mom was buried. I don't think she was ever at the grave because she's very rarely here in New Jersey. We were going by, and I pointed the direction of the church she was buried. I said, "Mom's buried right over there," because I thought maybe she might want to go. Some people need to go and
Oh,
never had the chance. And she said, "No, I'm." She says, "I'm good. I don't think she's there. I think you're right. Have you spoken to her lately?" I was like, "Wow." As a matter of fact, you know, and I just thought it was so neat because her voice had accepted it. And I thought, okay.
yeah,
And I said, she's going to find a way to let you know she heard this. And I said, just please keep this in your head. This is between you and her. But she's going to find a way to show you this. I promise you, I know it as well. I'm feeling it right now. I said, I know it as well as you're sitting here. And she said, okay. And I said, if you accept that, that'll help her, the positive energy. And
right.
I was just meant it. We are riding on the way to meet her friend, and her friend is having a surprise. That's why she was brought in. It was a surprise retirement, and it was given in this hall, like a hall where you go in and you can rent a couple of rooms, whatever. They open them up, right? Well, you go in, and she's in front of me, and the lady opens the door. She goes, "Okay, you're this way," and the little hostess lady opens up the doors, and right there, 2 feet in the open doorway, is 2 dozen yellow roses. And I'll tell you why that was significant. My mom and my sister were separated for many years. We were in different states all the time. We were all over the place. And on my Mother's Day or birthday, it never really happened twice in a year, but was one or the other. My mom would come home from work, or there'd be a delivery. Usually I was there to get it, and I'd set the roses on the table. And my mom would come home from work, and she'd just walk in. She'd go, "Oh, she shouldn't have done that. She doesn't have them. Oh, they're beautiful." It was her favorite rose. My sister that saw them gave my mother yellow roses almost every year she could. And my
Oh,
mother found a way to give my sister yellow roses right after she said what she said. And there it was. It's the
that's
little
amazing.
things like that we poo
Oh yeah,
poo or throw away. And we should be grabbing every single one of those we can grab, you know?
oh, I agree.
Little
I
miracles.
totally agree.
I think they're
Um,
little spiritual miracles. They're beautiful.
yeah, we learn how to become so negative
Hmm.
and create such misery within our families and through different things in life that you lose sight of things.
Hmm. Hmm. And I don't even know. I asked the girl who put them there because I thought that they were the friend who was having the retirement, like her favorite color. Every woman's got a favorite color rose, trust me.
Right.
And I thought that that meant something for her. And she said, "No, I just thought they were so pretty." And I'm like, "Okay, so mom worked through this girl who was picking up, but that's how they do." And there's no way
Yeah.
we can explain it. I turned around and looked at my sister. I said, "If you don't think those are for you from her, you're out of your mind." And I just left her standing there with her mouth open. Isn't that funny? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to jump on your time. Go
Oh,
do
it's very
another one,
funny.
Steve.
Okay, let's see what we got here next. This one says Dry Run Jim, Voice 2.
Okay. This is an old school that I've been investigating. It's up in Tennessee, and it's actually a winery now. And I'm actually going back there next week to film third episode there. Captured a lot of things. Um, Go ahead and play that.
That one is really way back in there. I heard somebody speaking, and then there was like a smaller voice back in there. Let me play that one again.
Right, it's the smaller voice that doesn't belong.
Yeah, it's almost like a whisper, almost, but I
Mm.
can't tell what they're saying.
That one we were in the gym, and I was down. There's an old gym, so we were setting up lights, and we were going to play some '50s music and do like a little prom to see if we can kick up the activity. And so the one investigator, my friend Danny, was coming down, and she said, "Oh, you're down there? I'll come down there." And just as she was going to come down the stairs, you hear this voice say, "Cora, Cora." It's definitely an old name. Um,
Mm.
Mhm.
and so, what's really interesting about this old school is from 1948 and it closed in 1986. We have a woman that was the janitor there from the day it opened until the day it closed. And she's still alive. And I've actually sat down with her and played her these recordings. At first, she didn't believe in ghosts at all. And after I started playing it, what we had captured, she was, she was pretty amazed. And she knew a lot of the names of
Wow.
what I captured, and she could tell me, where they were from, and if they were around
Wow.
or passed away. Um, we've captured so many things there, but it's an old school. It's a 5-room school, and I met the owners a few years ago. I was just going there to taste their wines. So it was a winery, and I got to talking to the owner, and she mentioned something. I said, "Why, it's really quiet in this place." I said, "Did you ever hear anything?" And she's like, "Do you mean ghosts?" I'm like, well, I didn't say that, but she goes, "It's funny you say that because 2 weeks ago, one of the coworkers that worked here was hanging pictures of all the children that used to go to school here, and he made these little wooden frames, and he was hanging them in the hall, and all of a sudden he felt something like an energy behind them, and he knew he wasn't alone." And so he told the owners what he experienced. And from there, that's where it kind of started. And so I've been the first investigator to go in there. And I've captured many things. There's actually a video out there on YouTube called the Haunted Watauga Lake Winery. And you can see a lot of the stuff that was captured. But in the new show, we're going to also do an episode from there. And that's what we're filming this coming weekend.
How
So
exciting is this?
yeah, and it really is amazing because nobody died at this property, and not that we know of, and even the older woman said nobody ever passed away or anything. And I've captured so many things there, which really interesting.
And it just
Two
makes
weeks
you
ago,
wonder,
yeah,
like you said, uh, what draws them? Is it the place, or is it the people talking about them? They hear, they connect in. I mean, so many Native American stories that I've heard, and so many talks that I've had with elders. They always tell me, we don't want to talk about that stuff. Not
right,
ghosts, but other things that might be in the woods or wherever, because
mm,
when you speak of them, you get their attention and they hear you. And I
right,
often
Mhm.
wonder if just ghosts, we all talk about loved ones, tell your loved one happy birthday on their birthday. If you're thinking about them, tell them you love them, send it out there. Why wouldn't it work just for somebody else? If you're talking about, like we said with Benjamin Franklin, or you mentioned Washington, I don't believe Washington is stuck anywhere. I mean, I don't
right,
know. But if you're talking about them and that energy is connected, you see what I mean? Like maybe just because they were putting up the pictures and they were being remembered, even
right.
if they died as adults, they came back or something, you know?
Yeah, it's really interesting, especially because of the things I've captured. Did get a really interesting photo of a man that was named Fred, and he helped raise money to build the gym. The school didn't have a gym, and he actually was an engineer in the area, and he helped run and get all the money raised to build the gym. And then he was with the Army Corps of Engineers, and they were building for the lake that's right up the road. They were building a big bridge, and the bridge actually collapsed, and he got killed.
Oh,
So they had written a whole thing on him and made a nice little, uh, you know, put a photo up of him and thanked him for all his services. Well, I went in there. I didn't know anything about Fred, and I said, "Well, who's here with us?" And I got a man's voice saying, "Fred."
wow.
That's cool.
That is so
So
cool.
turns out that the 95-year-old lady that Miss K, that we talked to a lot, the I read the little message that they had. They have it in a frame and they have a picture of him. She goes, "I wrote that back in the 50s when he died." I
Mm.
was like, "Oh wow, how cool!" So, it's a really interesting place, and we keep finding more things. And the owners didn't know what to believe. At first they didn't know what was going on in their place, and now after a few years, and they've seen how much I've captured from, they really are more comfortable with it. But it's fascinating location.
And I'm so glad that people like you are out there. There's so many of us like us that just love the history, and not just for a place to go on Saturday, or
Right,
there's so many that read the stories and you get into the lives. I tell you, when I started reading, you want your heart tugged on when you start reading Civil War journals of these
right,
men who wrote. I mean, all this going around, and they're pulling out this little book to try, and the most beautiful handwriting, just to talk about, they got some fine tobacco today, and I thought of you, and I hope the kids are okay. Never knowing when those letters or journals ever get back to the person they were writing it to, and then the women or the townspeople that wrote them too, and the feelings and the way they spoke, and oh, it's just amazing. There's so many people that want to keep history alive, and I can't personally thank you enough for doing your best to do it. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you. I
It's
think it
really
takes
beautiful what you're doing. You
well,
want to
thank
tell
you.
us a little bit about the show? I mean, as much as you're willing
Oh,
to
sure.
reveal,
Oh,
so
sure.
we can look for it.
Oh, sure. The show is really about me and what I've done all these years, traveling to different historical locations and trying to make that connection with the past
Hmm.
former owners or people that were there. And so the show is called, of all things, Journey Through the Past.
Yeah,
Um, Heritage Hunters Journey Through the Past. And my show is not dark and creepy and
right.
people running around the dark and
It's
cursing
beautiful.
and saying, what was that? And I work, and the other thing is, I work with many different individuals and teams that I've met over the years that we've built friendships and we're like family.
Hmm.
Um, and they're all on the show too. And so I highlight the different teams that are out there too, because I always like that aspect
Yes.
of these earlier shows when they would do that,
Hmm.
and I see a lot of them don't do that now. Um, I like to because I like to bring in other people too and see how they do their method of investigating
Hmm.
versus mine, and we all share together. And I don't bring a lot of people in at a time. If I do a location, two or three people, maybe
Hmm.
four top. Um, but so that's what the show is going to share also that all the different folks that work with over the years and how they've contributed to the field. I
Hmm.
just think that, and it's that type of show will always be around because I'll always keep finding more and more really seasoned, good investigators to work with. There's a lot of great ones out there
That's
that aren't
absolutely
being
true.
highlighted,
That's true.
that doesn't have TV shows, and they're not trying to get on TV shows.
Right.
And mine, I'm keeping it real simple and just showing the evidence, showing the history. Um, not, I don't like when people are playing EVPs on a show and you can't hear what they're saying.
Right.
You can read what they're saying, but I
Right.
want to make sure all my stuff is really clear,
Right.
and and just really share.
Right.
I have so much evidence from the years that I was like, I don't believe in putting stuff on Facebook. It's really not the place to put evidence because you just get hammered by negative
It's
people.
true.
So I said I want to create my own show so I can really share. I've got some really great things to share,
That's
and I
wonderful.
wanted a place to do it. So I figured let me put it on Prime TV, and that way people can watch it and enjoy
And
it. And people that
enjoy
like
it.
it will
And
like it.
when you
Yeah,
watch, I don't want to give anything away, but the sounds as you're, as the camera's panning through certain things, and it is like the echoes of the past, and the
right.
and the sounds. I think we forget so often. I mean, just sitting right where I'm sitting by the ocean, and I go and I stand on the ocean, I stand on the beach, and I look out at the waves, and I'm right here, where I am. I'm right here on the route to New York, where all the immigrants came through. And before that,
Right.
how many people gathered around water? There's this food source, and it's a life source, and it's just everywhere we stand, there's history, no matter how
Oh yeah.
far back you go. And it's
Yeah.
just amazing to go through. I can't get enough of it, and I think the show is going to be fantastic. I myself am looking forward to it. Steve has seen
Thank
a
you very
few
much.
clips and just loved it, didn't you,
Right.
Steve?
Yeah, I can't wait. I saw the little the trailer there that you sent me. That looks
Oh,
good.
great.
I'm anxious to see where you
Oh,
go with
great.
that, and best of luck on that to you.
Thank you so much. And what I'm doing is each episode is going to be like a mini documentary. So it'll be 45, 50 minutes long, a little bit longer than most episodes. And I'll release each one as they're ready so that they get out there. So I'm not doing like having to collect six of them first and put out a series that way.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and that can continue into next season.
That's
You said
wonderful.
this is on
So
Prime Video on Amazon, right?
it'll be on Prime TV, right?
Wonderful.
And I figure that's a lot of people have it now. A lot of people are getting away from regular cable and
Sure.
going more towards the Amazon, and a lot of people can see it overseas as well.
When do you
So I
think
just
that
think
it might be? When do you predicting that it might be
I'm
out?
hoping possibly maybe just after Thanksgiving
Oh
um,
wow,
to
that's
get it.
soon.
Cool.
Get it.
Cool.
Oh
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
please let us know so
Everybody,
we can
everybody
help.
was begging me to get it out for Halloween. I'm like, nah, I don't do that. I don't do that Halloween thing. Um,
Yeah,
it it takes time to edit. I'm doing everything 100% filming,
right.
editing, writing.
People don't realize
And
how
I'm
much
telling you,
work.
Mostly,
after this Halloween, I may not do another. I decided to do the 31 days of Halloween. I've been doing a video a day,
I
and
see.
it was mostly stuff that I'd narrated. Last few nights, I've been putting public domain horror movies up there just
Just
because I'm worn out. Because I also host a morning show 3 days a
Oh
week,
wow.
did Zombified, and then Cisco and I get into stuff together. And I'm ready for November. I'm going to rest for a week
You
or
got to
two.
pace yourself.
she is.
Yeah.
And then I got that 24-hour stream starting. It's currently the 29th here. Tomorrow night at 9 o'clock
Uh,
Okay.
Pacific time, I'm going live and I'm going to welcome in Halloween across all the time zones. Yes, when I go on at 9 Pacific, that's midnight Eastern. And
Oh
then,
yeah.
so all those
Please
so,
send
people
me
high on sugar eating
any.
all that candy can stay up all night and listen, and
well, I
it's
think what
worth
I'm
it
going to
because it's
do,
going to be
I've
good.
got uh, my host coming in with me, a girl in England, so it's a different time zone for her. She's going to help me out there.
Good.
And I'm going to be live for the first 3 hours. And then I've got playlists set up in my streaming software where I'm going to run content from my show, my videos on YouTube, and then I'll break in live occasionally. I don't have to be there
Right.
and babysit for the whole 24 hours. I could probably do it, but I'd be even worse
You're
than
going
I
to be a
already
zombie
am.
yourself. You're going to
Yeah.
be a zombie
Oh yeah.
yourself. And I kid and I told Mike I said, "Look, I mean, I just thought I started that whole cabin thing because I looked at my son and I said, I can write a good
And
ghost
that is
story."
absolutely blowing up. People have gone nuts over that. It's got hundreds and hundreds of views
I said, I can,
already in just a few
It
days
really is.
per
yeah.
episode.
It was a challenge really for my son. I said, I can write one about 20, 25 minutes. And then I said, I'll do you one better. I'll narrate the whole thing. I'll do voices and everything. And he said, go ahead, let's see. And I did it. And then I gave it to Steve for his birthday. And then people
Wow.
liked it
Cool.
so much and said, we'd love to hear more of that. And I'm like, oh, gosh, I could do more. Now I'm sitting here like, oh my God, I'm writing
We got
like
about 5
16
hours of
hours a day.
content already, and there's going to be at least two
Hmm.
more episodes,
It's
and
going to be a
everyone
book.
gets longer. It started out, I think, the first was like 30, 35 minutes, and the last one was like what, an hour and 40
I
minutes or
think it's an
something.
hour and a half.
And
And I'm
she's not
narrating.
plotted this out or anything or working
Uh-uh.
Oh
off
my God.
notes or anything really. She's making it up as she goes along.
I
She's
am.
just writing it it's a
Wow.
novel. It's turned into a novel.
Hmm.
So
It's really great.
And
we're
the
going to
thing
make it
is,
into a book and
the
publish it. And then she's told me I can write the screenplay for it. So
yep.
there's no telling where
Nice.
this is going to go because it's a very visual story.
Thank you.
She
Oh
didn't
yeah.
know that she was such a good
I
writer,
had no
but
idea.
Yeah.
you can see all
Excellent
these
writer.
characters, and it's not
Yeah.
just a little drinky dink story. She's got all these like different storylines woven
Yeah.
together. And I could not do that on the fly. I mean, I have to sit and plan it out
No,
and
I
then
can't
Yeah.
plan
try to make
nothing.
everything match up with
I
everybody
think
else in the
the
story.
I think the
Oh,
ghosts are helping her. She
I
that's
she
what
do.
I
used
I
them
think
told her.
for.
so too.
Somebody's
Yeah.
guiding her hand there. Somebody
That's
wants
right.
this story told, even though it's not based in
Hmm.
any truth as far as we know.
Right.
But maybe it
Wow.
is. Who
It could
knows? It
be.
could be telling somebody's story.
I
That's
have
right.
really, while writing it, I can tell you that you guys this because it's just us, but because that was a joke. But while I was writing it, there'd be time, and I'm just going, and I'm going, and I've got ice on my shoulder because I pulled something. I don't know why I'm writing on a laptop and it hurts so bad, but that's how much I've been writing. I've got ice pack and a zapper on my shoulder, and I can't stop. And I'm just writing and I'm writing and I'm writing. And then I'll come back and I'll look at it and I'll read it and I'm like, man, did I write
Did I
that?
write that?
That is
isn't
wow.
that
You know,
isn't that an amazing feeling?
it is.
I've
I
done
have
that.
no
Write
idea.
something and come back to it and like I wrote this. I don't even remember doing this,
Yeah.
but that's good. I like it.
And
That's
it's
right.
funny because
That's
I
what
was trying to get it finished for Halloween, but then I said like I'm not going to rush it. I know I've got at least two more episodes to do justice to the story and the characters because
right.
My husband said, You're up there, you got ice on your shoulder, you're running off of 3 laptops, and, because I keep moving to just give my muscles a different chance, and I'm doing it on my phone. I'm doing it on my phone, for Pete's sake. And he said, just you
Excuse me.
take the main character and have him wake up and it was all a dream. And I'm like, I would do that to people. They hate it when people do that.
Yeah, the other
So it's
morning you were
funny.
up writing at like it was before daylight. It's like 5 o'clock
Five
in the
o'clock
morning.
in the
She's
morning.
already
Oh
working on
wow.
it, and she said her husband and her son were making coffee and pushing it toward her with a stick and then running away.
It's true. But it's
Oh, that's
really
what it takes.
good. I
Yeah.
hope you
Yeah.
listen, Mike. It's a good story, and it's great to turn on the car and
Oh,
just,
definitely.
Steve
Yes.
put it together in a playlist. So, and I don't even know exactly what's going to happen. But I absolutely can sit with writers and understand. It's like when they look down and they go, "Well, I have the characters, and it's interesting to see what they do, because each character acts a different, persona." So you're basically just waiting to see what the characters uh do themselves. It's like they're
And
writing
that
it.
happens.
They're
I
writing it.
I mainly write just the true paranormal stuff, but I dabbled in fiction too with some scripts and things. And they do. They take on a
They
life of their. I
do.
mean, you'll have a
It's weird.
character that'll suddenly, end up killing another character. It's like I didn't even plan for that. It just
You're right.
kind of happened. That's just the
So
way
funny.
things went.
So all
And
of
it
us are
went south, and this one killed that one, and now what's
yeah.
that one going to do to this one for that? And it's like, wow.
I'm sometimes as
Sounds like a
surprised.
great series.
It is funny, but isn't it a delightful thing that three of us are sitting here, and we've had our experiences, and we've had our quests that we're doing, but we've all found a way to express it, to give it back
Right.
to other people who are interested. And I think that's a wonderful thing. And I
Yeah.
can't even believe it's been 2 hours we've been sitting here. We
Wow.
could definitely, I told you in the beginning, we could go another 4 or 5, but I want everybody to be able to find you and find all your interests and your groups and everything. Please tell us, Michael, where we can
Yes.
find you.
Well, I pretty much I keep it simple. I don't have a lot of websites anymore. I used to have them.
Okay.
I just do it off of Facebook. So
Hmm.
it's you can look for me, MichealLaChana.com, and also the Heritage Hunter Society at Facebook, and also THHS Journey Through the Past
Hmm.
is the Facebook page.
Hmm.
Facebook has been so good to me that I just have gotten a lot of good followers and supporters through it. And my websites, which I used to pay a lot of money for, we get nobody.
It's true.
So,
Isn't that
Yeah. And
funny?
it's kind of
just,
gone to that now. Used to everybody
yeah,
had a website for everything.
Hmm.
And now
yeah.
it's all gone to social media. And I don't really even know that many people with their own websites anymore,
Hmm.
No,
unless
and
they
if
got
you
a
do,
product or something.
yeah, even it's just a lot of people, unless you get on the Google, right? Um, yeah, you won't get a lot of traffic, and you
Hmm.
can't really communicate easily on a website anyway versus Facebook.
That's
Um,
true.
and that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, look,
In a lot of
we're
ways.
all
Yeah.
connected to Facebook. That's how we all met each other. I
That's
met
true.
you, Cisco. I met you in at the Bash, the
That's
first Bash, right?
true.
That's right.
I just now remembered that when you said that. And I said, I met so many people, and I said we were going to get together and have an interview, and it only took me 2 years to do it.
Well, I met you. You were so nice, and there was something about you. You were talking about your show, and were trying to get people on the show that day.
Hmm.
And I was just taking some pictures with the Keystone
Yes.
folks, and I think we disappeared after that. But we stayed in touch all this time. That's almost 2 years ago.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah, see? And
And here we are, 2 hours later.
and why do we think ghosts don't do that? You know what I mean? And meet and bump into each other and connect in that way. And I think that's one of the most important things we can take away from a show like this is to, if we stop thinking of them as ghosts and stop thinking of them as spirits and think of them as people. Like Hans Holzer said, I have never been afraid of a ghost because they're just people in need of help after all. And I've always lived that with that in my head, and I've seen it from a different perspective. And I think I know Steve does. And I think it just makes it so different, and it just puts all the magic back in it because it is magical. It's wonderful, And I
And I have a
thank you
great
so
leading
much. Go ahead.
statement for you that I always tell people. We
Oh,
are all
please.
connected by our spirit.
Yes,
Right
absolutely.
on.
And you know, whether they're new spirits or old spirits, that's what connects us all. So.
That's so true. That's so true. I think we all have more in common than we have in our differences, and for whatever reason, time and the times we're in and stuff, we seem to be emphasizing differences when we forget all that we have in common. And I just love being involved in all this and reaching out and meeting great and wonderful people like you. And I love everything you're doing. Please don't lose touch. Please let
Well,
Steve
I
and I.
love what you're doing too. I mean, your show is excellent.
Thank you.
It's really and it's different than a lot of other shows out there. I'm
Thanks.
really enjoying it. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh
Steve, is
gosh.
really nice meeting you
No, it's
too.
a pleasure meeting you. I'm anxious to check out
Yeah.
your material there.
And please
And
come
I'm going to
back. And
join all
Stephen,
your different sites.
we'll make sure that those EVPs get in there nice and clear so the listeners can hear them. And absolutely come back. This is just the beginning of a long relationship. And, you're
Yeah, I'd
just
love to have another show or two to sit
Oh,
absolutely.
discuss
sure.
it. It's been fascinating.
Anytime. I have tons of stories still to share, and I love hearing your different experiences too. It's
And
great.
if you're ever available during the daytime, I'd love to have you on my morning show
Oh,
sometime.
sure.
I have
Sure.
like an hour, 3 days a week. It's been kind of messed up this month because of other things that my producers have going on. Normally Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I go on at like 9 a.m.
Okay.
Eastern.
Yeah,
But I'll
just
I'll
give me
I'll get in
give me a
contact
shout
with
with
you.
your schedule, and I can always do a morning sometime.
Okay, great.
That'd be great.
I appreciate that.
Fantastic.
Well, thanks again for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Steve. We know where to get a hold of you and be there
Yeah, I'm
for
on
Halloween's
YouTube,
20. Yeah.
13 past midnight. I'm on Facebook. Steve Stockton.81 is the thing. I'm on Twitter at Strange and Odd. Said I'll be doing still got my morning shows, starting back after Halloween with me and my other host, my partner in crime there, Tanya Jones from the UK. She's going to be joining me for the live stream tomorrow night, starting at 9 p.m.
Look forward to that.
Pacific. So join me for that if you can, and it's
We
gonna be
will.
fun. It's gonna be wild. And no telling what'll happen.
All
Oh,
right.
sounds great.
Thank you so much, everybody. Okay.
Thanks again. Everybody have a great night.
Good
Oh,
night. Happy
yeah.